Hi guys, and welcome to Bedtime History Relaxing. Tonight we step into a medieval caravan wagon on the Silk Road, where snow sweeps across the road like pale smoke. Wooden wheels groan in frozen ruts, and the night feels large enough to swallow every lantern in the caravan. You are wrapped in wool, pressed between sacks of trade goods, listening to camels complain with the ancient confidence of animals who know they are important. And yes, just a gentle reality check. You probably won't survive this comfortably, especially if your winter travel plan is bring one blanket and hope for the best. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, tell us where you are watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights and let the storm gather around you. You are already on the road when the snow begins to thicken. At first, this is only a powder drifting sideways across the track, catching in the fur along your collar and melting against the warmth of your breath. Then the wind changes, it comes lower, harder, pushing under the canvas cover of the wagon, finding every loose seam, every gap between planks, every place where a tired traveller has tried to pretend that medieval carpentry is basically central heating. It is not. The wagon shudders beneath you. Its wheels are heavy, iron-rimmed, and half sunk into frozen mud hidden under fresh snow. Each turn makes a strained wooden sound, a slow complaint from axle and spoke. You feel the vibration through the floorboards into your knees and hips. Somewhere behind you, another wagon answers with its own creak, and beyond that another, until the whole caravan seems to be speaking in a tired language of wood, rope, leather, and animal breath. You sit with your back against a bale wrapped in rough cloth. It smells faintly of dust, sheep wool, and something sharper underneath. Maybe pepper, maybe dried herbs, maybe a spice so expensive that someone nearby would become extremely nervous if you used it to improve your stew. Around your boots are bundles tied with cord, clay jars packed in straw, folded textiles sealed against damp, and small chests that no one has explained to you. That's probably for the best. On the Silk Road, curiosity can be educational, but it can also become a very fast way to be asked why your hand is near someone else's profit. The road ahead is barely a road now. It lies somewhere between the dark line of low hills and the pale blur of the open plain. The caravan master rides near the front, wrapped in layered wool and felt, his face mostly hidden. You cannot see his expression, but you can sense the attention in the way he turns his head. He watches the animals, the sky, the depth of the snow, the distance between wagons. He watches everything because the road does not forgive laziness. A well-known truth about medieval Silk Road travel is that it was never one single road, but a network of routes crossing deserts, mountains, grasslands, towns, oases, and imperial borders. Goods might pass from hand to hand many times before reaching their final market. Silk, spices, paper, dyes, horses, glass, medicines, metalwork, stories, songs, and rumours all moved along these connected paths. You're not simply travelling across land, you're being carried inside a moving thread of exchange that stretches between worlds. But tonight, that grand idea feels much less glamorous. Tonight, history is mostly cold toes. The camels move beside the wagon in a slow, swaying line. Their long legs lift and settle with strange elegance, even in the snow. A bell hangs from one animal's neck, wrapped partly in cloth to soften the sound, so it gives only a dull, tired clink when the camel steps. You hear nostrils blowing steam. You hear leather straps creak. You hear a driver mutter something that might be encouragement or might be a detailed complaint about the personality of a particular camel. The camel does not appear moved by criticism. Snow gathers on its eyelashes. You pull your blanket tighter. The wool scratches your chin, but you're grateful for it. Beneath the wagon cover, the air holds a cramped mixture of smells: damp felt, old wood, cold leather, Animal fat used to soften straps, smoke trapped in clothing, and the sweet ghost of dried fruit from a sack nearby. Every breath feels like it has already passed through centuries. Outside, the storm grows thicker. The sky loses its last colour. The horizon vanishes. The world becomes a narrow tunnel of movement, bounded by the wagon ahead and the wagon behind. A lantern swings from a pole near the driver, its flame protected by horn or thin scraped material, glowing amber through the white rush of snow. It does not light the road so much as prove that darkness has not completely won. You listen to the people around you. A merchant clears his throat softly, then says nothing. A young servant shifts under a cloak, trying to find a warmer position among the cargo. Someone near the rear of the wagon whispers a prayer in a language you do not know. The words are quiet and rounded, shaped by cold lips. They fade quickly, but the feeling remains. This is how the caravan survives, not through comfort, not through speed, but through rhythm, step, creak, breath, bell, wind. Again, a lesser-known curiosity from travel lore says that some caravan people believed certain bells, knots, colours, or charms could confuse harmful spirits on lonely roads. Whether any traveller truly trusted a charm more than a good guide is another question, but you can understand the impulse. Out here, when snow erases the earth and the sky becomes a blank wall, even a tiny strip of coloured thread tied to a harness can feel like an argument against chaos. The wagon lurches suddenly. You grab the bale beside you as one wheel drops into a hidden rut. The whole load shifts with a heavy sigh. A jar knocks against another jar. Someone curses under his breath. Politely enough for bedtime, but with feeling, the driver calls to the animals. The caravan slows. For a moment, everything becomes very still. The wind fills the pause. Snow taps against the canvas like thousands of small fingers. You hear men moving outside, boots crunching, ropes tightening. A command passed forward and then backward. No one shouts unless they must. Sound travels strangely in snow. Too much noise can scatter animals, confuse instructions, or simply waste breath that would be better kept warm inside the body. Historians continue to discuss how often winter caravans deliberately risked high routes during severe weather. Since records tend to preserve successful journeys, official missions, and dramatic disasters more clearly than ordinary cold nights like this one, some travellers surely waited out storms in towns or caravanserais when they could. Others had deadlines, debts, contracts, hungry animals, or political pressures that made waiting difficult. Medieval life, like modern life, had a way of turning absolutely not into unfortunately. Yes, the wheel is freed after several long minutes. The wagon groans forward again. You settle back, heart slowing. Your fingers ache where they grip the cloth bale. You flex them under the blanket and feel warmth return in small painful sparks. The servant across from you gives a tired smile, the kind that says, "Well, we are not frozen yet," which in this moment passes for optimism. The road continues. Somewhere ahead there may be a caravanserai, a walled resting place with a courtyard, stables, food, water, and a roof that does not flap like a frightened bird. Somewhere beyond that, there may be a city with tiled domes, crowded markets, warm bread, and lamps reflected in wet stone streets. Somewhere even farther there are ports, palaces, workshops, monasteries, counting houses, and homes where people will touch these goods without ever imagining this wagon, this storm, this numb little moment in the dark. But you are here. You are inside the moving body of the caravan. The snow finds the seams. The wheels complain. The camels breathe clouds into the night. The driver leans into the storm as if negotiating with it. And you, wrapped among trade goods and strangers, begin to understand that the Silk Road is not only silk, Not only maps, not only legendary cities glowing at the edge of imagination, it is also this: a slow wagon in winter, a line of animals refusing to vanish, a group of tired people trusting one another because the alternative is deeply inconvenient. And as the darkness folds closer around the caravan, you lower your head against the bale behind you, listening to the muffled bell, the soft thunder of hooves, and the endless whisper of snow over the road ahead. The wagon continues forward through the storm, and after a while you stop measuring time by hours. You measure it by wheel turns, by the sway of the wagon, by the number of times you pull your blanket tighter around your shoulders. The road beneath you has become invisible. Snow covers every rut, every stone, every patch of frozen earth, yet somehow the drivers still follow it. The caravan does not move quickly, but it moves with purpose, and on the silk road that often matters more than speed. Outside, the wind has settled into a steady howl. Not a dramatic howl, not the kind that belongs in ghost stories. This is the practical howl of winter, the sort that seeps into clothing, numbs fingertips, and makes travellers wonder why warm houses were ever invented if people keep leaving them. You peer through a gap in the wagon covering. The world beyond appears almost colourless. White snow, grey sky, dark shapes of camels, occasional flashes of lantern light. Everything else has vanished. The driver rides beside the lead animals, his shoulders rounded against the cold. Frost gathers on his beard. Snow clings to the folds of his felt coat. He looks less like a merchant and more like a moving snowdrift with opinions. You cannot imagine doing his job. Every few moments he studies the road ahead, searching for signs hidden beneath the weather, a ridge line, a cluster of rocks, the curve of a frozen stream. Tiny clues become essential when snow begins erasing the landscape. The wagon suddenly jolts, not violently, just enough to remind everyone that the road is still there beneath the snow, waiting to surprise them. You hear cargo shifting, a chest slides slightly before settling again. A clay jar taps softly against wood. Someone nearby lets out a long sigh. The servant across from you has pulled his knees against his chest. His nose is red from cold. He looks half asleep. You suspect everyone feels the same. Travel during winter is exhausting in a peculiar way. No one is running, no one is fighting, yet the cold quietly drains strength hour after hour. A commonly accepted historical observation is that caravans generally travelled at the pace of their slowest practical animals. Even wealthy merchants had to respect the limits of camels, horses, mules, and oxen. A caravan that rushed risked losing valuable animals long before reaching its destination. The lesson feels obvious now. You watch one of the camels outside. Its broad feet press into the snow. Its long neck sways gently. Steam rises from its nostrils. It never appears hurried. The camel seems to possess the confidence of a creature that has spent thousands of years proving humans wrong. People often imagine medieval travel as heroic adventure. The reality contains considerably more waiting, more discomfort, more sitting on hard surfaces wondering when dinner might happen. You shift position for perhaps the 50th time. Nothing helps. The wagon floor remains determined to be a wagon floor. Your legs ache, your back aches, even your blanket seems tired. Still, there is something strangely peaceful about the rhythm. The wheels turn, the caravan advances, snow falls. You begin noticing details you might otherwise ignore. The sound of leather straps tightening, the creak of wood expanding and contracting in the cold, the soft crunch of animal feet, the occasional murmur of conversation drifting between wagons. Each sound becomes part of a slow winter symphony. Far ahead, a lantern swings, back and forth, back and forth. The movement is almost hypnotic. You find yourself staring at it. Perhaps travellers have always done this. Perhaps countless merchants, pilgrims, messengers, and adventurers spent long nights watching the same swaying lights while trying not to think about frozen fingers. The storm thickens briefly. Snow rushes sideways across the caravan. The lead lantern nearly disappears. A moment later it emerges again. The sight brings unexpected comfort. It is a simple thing, just a light, yet in darkness. Even a small certainty feels valuable. A curious travel tradition recorded in some regions involved hanging bells of different tones among caravan animals. Practical reasons certainly existed, since bells helped people track animals during the poor visibility. Yet some travellers also claimed particular sounds brought good fortune on dangerous roads. Whether fortune was listening remains unclear. The animals probably appreciated being found when they wandered off. The servant across from you finally speaks, only a few words. He asks if you think the snow will stop. You glance toward the canvas, toward the darkness, toward the universe's apparent commitment to producing more snow. You answer honestly, probably not tonight. He nods. Neither of you seem surprised. The conversation ends there. Winter encourages efficiency. Outside, several riders move along the caravan line. They travel slowly between wagons, checking ropes, animals, and spacing. Their lanterns cast brief golden circles onto the snow before darkness swallows them again. You watch one stop beside a heavily loaded wagon, a quick inspection, a few adjustments, then onward. The caravan behaves almost like a living creature. Each person has a role. Each role helps the whole survive. Drivers guide animals. Guards watch the horizon. Servants prepare supplies. Merchants protect investments. Animal handlers monitor the health of the beasts. Everyone contributes something. Without cooperation, the road becomes far more dangerous. Researchers continued debating exactly how much authority caravan leaders exercised over large groups assembled from multiple regions and commercial interests. Some expeditions may have operated with strict discipline, while others likely relied on negotiation, reputation, and practical compromise. Looking around, compromise feels very believable. No one here appears eager for unnecessary arguments. Everyone simply wants shelter. The wagon rolls over another frozen rut. You brace yourself automatically this time. Experience is arriving faster than comfort. The snowfall begins reflecting lantern light in strange ways. Tiny crystals drift through the air like floating sparks. For a moment, the storm almost resembles a sky full of stars moving in the wrong direction. The sight is beautiful. Then a gust of wind throws snow directly into your face through the opening. Beauty becomes considerably less impressive. You pull the flap closed. Problem solved. Mostly, the smell of spices returns. You identify cinnamon this time, or at least you think it is cinnamon. The scent mingles with wool and leather. Somewhere nearby, dried fruit has been packed among trade goods. You catch occasional hints of sweetness beneath the other smells. These cargoes are worth enormous effort. Weeks of travel, months sometime, perhaps years before reaching final buyers. You imagine a wealthy customer in a distant city opening a chest of imported goods, admiring the contents, praising the quality, never realizing those items once rattled through a snowstorm, while a freezing traveller desperately searched for a comfortable place to sit. History often remembers the treasure, not the sore backs. The caravan gradually climbs higher ground. You can feel it. The animals work harder. The wagon slows further. Wheels crunch through packed snow. The driver calls encouragement. A camel complains. Another answers. Their strange groaning conversation drifts through the night. The sounds are oddly reassuring. As long as the animals are complaining, they are still moving. Eventually the slope levels out. A collective sense of relief seems to pass through the caravan. Nothing dramatic, just a subtle easing, a slight increase in pace, a few voices speaking more casually. You rest your head against the bale behind you. The fabric feels rough against your cheek. The wagon rocks gently or outside. The storm continues its endless work. Snow falls onto road, wagon, camel, rider, and world alike. Yet the caravan endures. One wheel turn at a time, one careful step at a time, one breath of warm air inside a cold night, and somewhere beyond the darkness, beyond the frozen road and the drifting snow, the journey continues toward destinations still hidden from view. For now, though, there is only the wagon, the road beneath the wheels, and the steady determination that carries every traveller onward through the winter storm. The road continues beneath the wagon, though you can no longer see it. By now, the snowstorm has swallowed nearly everything beyond a short circle of lantern light. The world feels reduced to a handful of essential things: wood beneath you, wool around you, cold pressing from outside, the steady movement of the caravan carrying you forward through darkness. You shift again, searching for a more comfortable position among the cargo. The effort is optimistic rather than successful. A rolled carpet presses against one shoulder, a crate nudges your knee. Somewhere beneath your blanket, a corner of wood seems personally committed to making itself known. You eventually settle sideways against a stack of bundled textiles. It is not comfortable, but it is less uncomfortable. On a medieval journey, that counts as victory. The wagon creaks gently around you. Every plank has its own voice. Some produce long groans when the wheels strike uneven ground. Others answer with short clicks and pops. The canvas overhead flutters whenever a gust of wind hits the side. Together, the sounds create an oddly soothing rhythm. You begin noticing that each wagon in the caravan has a distinct personality. The wagon ahead squeals whenever it turns. The wagon behind rattles constantly. Your wagon prefers deep wooden sighs, as though it is carrying not cargo but centuries of accumulated disappointment. The servant across from you finally falls asleep. His head droops against a sack of wool. Every few moments he wakes slightly, adjusts his position, then drifts off again. You envy him. Sleep remains frustratingly distant. The wagon is too cold, too noisy, too cramped, and yet, despite all those things, you find yourself relaxing. Perhaps because there is nothing else to do. The storm outside is beyond your control. The road is beyond your control. The speed of the caravan is beyond your control. For one night, your responsibilities have become wonderfully limited. Stay warm. Stay inside the wagon. Avoid sitting directly on anything sharp. A surprisingly complete life strategy. You run your fingers along one of the cloth-wrapped bundles beside you. The fabric feels thick and tightly woven. Beneath it a folded textile destined for markets far away. The Silk Road carried many luxury goods, but textiles were among the most important. Fine fabrics could be worth remarkable sums, especially when they came from distant regions with specialized techniques or rare materials. Somewhere ahead, perhaps months from now, someone may unfold this cloth beneath bright market lanterns. They may admire its color, its texture, its craftsmanship. They may never imagine it spent part of its journey collecting snow beside your elbow. That is one of the quiet truths of trade. Objects remember journeys that buyers never see. The scent inside the wagon shifts as someone opens a small container nearby. A warm aroma drifts through the air. Spices, strong ones. You catch traces of cinnamon, perhaps cloves, perhaps something you cannot identify. The fragrance briefly overpowers the smell of wool and leather. For a few moments the wagon feels transformed, not luxurious exactly, but less like a frozen wooden box. You close your eyes. The scent carries your imagination elsewhere, toward cities, toward markets, toward places where snowstorms are somebody else's problem. The wagon lurches. Your imagination returns immediately. Outside, voices rise briefly, not alarmed, just busy. The caravan has slowed again. You hear drivers speaking to one another through the darkness. Hooves crunch. Harnesses rattle, then movement resumes. The entire process seems practiced. No one panics, no one rushes. Experienced travellers understand something important. The road punishes impatience. You peek through a narrow opening in the wagon covering. Snowflakes drift past the lantern light like glowing feathers. The nearest camel appears as a moving shadow. Its coat is dusted white. Its breath hangs in the air. It looks surprisingly calm. You begin suspecting that camels possess secret knowledge about enduring unpleasant situations. A curious historical detail survives in several travel accounts describing merchants who carried small luxury items purely for morale. Special tea, sweet-dried fruit, perfumed oils, tiny comforts that occupied little space but provided enormous psychological value during long journeys. After several hours in this wagon, you completely understand the concept. If someone offered you a warm cup of tea right now, you might declare them a saint. A merchant sitting near the front of the wagon begins humming softly. The melody is unfamiliar, slow, gentle, barely louder than the wind. Another traveller eventually joins him, then another. No formal song emerges, just fragments, half-remembered tunes from different places, different languages, different cultures. For a few minutes the wagon becomes a meeting point between worlds. The Silk Road was never merely a route for goods. Ideas travelled too. Music, religions, stories, technologies, languages, even recipes. Every caravan carried invisible cargo alongside physical cargo. You listen carefully, some melodies rise, others fade. The sounds mingle with the creaking wagon and the whispering snow. Eventually silence returns, not an empty silence, a comfortable one, the kind shared by tired people who no longer feel the need to fill every moment with conversation. You lean your head against the textile bundle again. This time it feels slightly softer, or perhaps you are simply becoming more tired. Outside, the wind strikes the wagon side. The canvas trembles, snow rattles against it. Then calm returns. A long pause follows. You become aware of the warmth trapped beneath your blanket. It is not much, but it is enough. Your fingers no longer ache. Your shoulders slowly relax. The cold remains present, yet it has stopped feeling aggressive. Now it sits beyond the wagon walls like a distant fact, a reality to acknowledge rather than fight. Scholars continue debating how comfortable medieval long-distance wagons actually were for passengers, since surviving descriptions vary widely depending on wealth, region, road conditions, and personal expectations. Judging from your current experience, the answer appears to be somewhere between barely acceptable and character-building. You suspect future centuries will invent better travel. At least you hope so. Then again, perhaps future travellers will complain just as much. Human beings seem remarkably talented at finding discomfort regardless of technological progress. The servant snores briefly. A merchant chuckles. Someone adjusts a blanket. The wagon rolls onward. Hours seem to blur together. The storm outside remains constant. Snow, wind, darkness. Yet inside the wagon another world exists. A small world. A temporary world. One built from cargo, blankets, shared endurance, and the unspoken agreement that everyone would very much like to reach shelter eventually. You begin studying the lantern hanging near the front. Its flame dances with every movement of the wagon. Sometimes it brightens, sometimes it dims. Its light paints golden patterns across crates and bundles. The glow softens hard edges, transforms ordinary cargo into mysterious shapes, makes the interior feel almost cozy, almost. You would not go so far as cozy. Let us remain historically honest. Still, compared with the blizzard outside, the wagon feels increasingly welcoming. The contrast matters. The storm sharpens your appreciation of small comforts, a blanket, a lantern, a dry place to sit, companionship. Simple things become valuable when conditions grow difficult. You listen to the wheels turning beneath you, slow, Steady, patient, the same rhythm that carried countless travellers before you. Merchants, pilgrims, messengers, scholars, adventurers, dreamers, all moving across vast distances 1 mile at a time, one wheel turn at a time, and as the storm continues its endless conversation with the night, you settle deeper among the trade goods, surrounded by spices, textile, and sleeping travellers, while the wagon carries you farther into the snowy heart of the Silk Road. The camel beside the wagon keeps moving through the white dark, and after a while, you begin to understand why people trust these animals with the impossible. It does not hurry, it does not perform, it does not look heroic, it simply continues. Its padded feet press into the snow with slow confidence, finding balance where a horse might slip, where a person might stumble, and where you, if invited to walk beside it for several hours, would almost certainly begin writing your farewell letter in the first mile. Now, the storm moves around the caravan in long pale sheets. Sometimes the nearest camel disappears completely, leaving only the dull clink of its muffled bell. Then the wind shifts, and its shape returns, tall and strange, its neck curved, its thick winter coat dusted with white. Steam rises from its nostrils, frost collects on its lashes, its mouth works slowly, as if it is thinking private camel thoughts about the poor decisions of humans. You cannot blame it. Inside the wagon, the cargo creaks against the ropes. You sit close to the side now, wrapped in your blanket, watching through a gap where the canvas has loosened. Cold air slips through and brushes your cheek, but you do not close the flap. The sight outside has become too hypnotic. The caravan animals move like shadows bound together by rope, habit, and patience. Some are camels, some are mules. A few horses carry riders who move between the wagons, checking that no animal has fallen behind. The horses look more anxious than the camels. Their ears flick, their heads toss when the wind throws snow into their faces. They are beautiful animals, but tonight beauty is not the same as usefulness. Across the Silk Road, different routes relied on different beasts. Bactrian camels, with their 2 humps and thick coats, were especially valued across colder parts of Central Asia because they could endure harsh temperatures and carry heavy loads over long distances. That is not romantic legend, it is practical biology wearing a grumpy expression. You watch one of them turn its head toward the wagon. Its eyes are dark and heavily lidded. It looks at you briefly. You feel judged. Then it faces forward again, apparently deciding you're not worth the energy. The bell around its neck gives another soft clink. Not bright, not musical, more like a memory of metal. Bells help drivers locate animals in low visibility. In a storm like this, losing even one loaded camel could mean losing valuable goods, food, equipment, or a deeply offended animal with no intention of returning quickly. The muted sound becomes part of the caravan's safety, a thread of hearing in a world where sight is failing. The driver walking near the animals carries a long staff. He uses it not to strike, but to guide, a touch against a flank, a tap near a hoof, a raised arm to slow the line. His voice is low and steady. The animals know him, or perhaps they know the rhythm of his commands, which may be almost the same thing after enough miles. You notice how carefully the loads are balanced. Bundles hang from wooden frames and rope harnesses. Sacks are paired by weight. Chests are wrapped to prevent shifting. Cloth pads protect the animals from rubbing straps. Nothing is casual. A poorly balanced load can injure an animal, slow a caravan, or scatter goods across the snow in a scene that might be funny only to someone not responsible for picking everything up with frozen fingers. A small odd belief from some caravan traditions claimed that certain animals could sense bad routes before humans noticed them. A camel refusing to move might be treated not merely as stubborn, but as a possible warning. Of course, camels also refuse things because they are camels, so the interpretation was probably a delicate art. Tonight, One of the younger camels stops. The line tightens. A rope pulls. The animal lowers its head and makes a deep groaning sound that seems to come from somewhere ancient and disappointed. The driver speaks softly. Another man approaches with a lantern. The light reveals snow packed around a strap near the animal's chest. The load has shifted slightly. Not badly, but enough to irritate the camel. And the camel would like the entire known world to understand this. The men work quickly. One holds the lantern close, another loosens the rope. The driver brushes snow away with gloved hands and adjusts the padding beneath the strap. The camel complains through the whole process. This is apparently necessary for morale. Inside the wagon, someone chuckles, quietly, respectfully. One mocks an animal that is carrying several fortunes through a blizzard. The adjustment takes only a few minutes, but the pause changes the mood. Every delay allows cold to deepen. Every delay risks spacing between wagons. The caravan master sends a rider back along the line, making sure the rear has stopped as well. The subject continues to generate discussion among historians, because written records often praise the value of caravan animals without always describing the daily labour of feeding, watering, resting, and treating them in bad weather. We know they were essential, we know they were expensive, but the ordinary routines of care, the small choices that kept them alive, often have to be reconstructed from fragments, travel accounts, and practical knowledge. You can feel that missing history in the scene before you. The careful hands, the padded straps, the slow patience, the fact that everyone waits for the camel because the camel is not cargo equipment, it is the engine, and engines, even furry judgmental ones, require maintenance. At last, the driver steps back. He clicks his tongue. The camel lifts its head with a final dramatic groan and begins moving again. The caravan follows, slowly, the wagon wheels turn, the bells resume. The storm closes behind the line as if nothing happened. You lean back into the wagon, but the image stays with you. The animals are not background details. They are the reason the caravan exists at all. Every roll of silk, every bag of spice, every letter, every coin, every dream of profit depends on muscle, breath, hoof, pad, hunger, thirst, and endurance. You listen differently now. The creak of the harness becomes meaningful. The steady footfalls become reassuring. The bell no longer sounds decorative. It sounds like survival. Outside, the camels continue into the dark, their bodies forming a moving wall against the wind. Snow collects on their coats but does not stop them. Their thick hair traps warmth. Their broad feet spread weight over soft ground. Their pace remains steady enough to make impatience seem childish. You begin to feel sleepy again. The wagon rocks in time with the animals. Forward, pause, forward, creak, bell, breath, snow. Your eyelids lower, then lift. The nearest camel's shadow passes the lantern glow again and again, like a slow pendulum. Perhaps this is why the road can continue at all. Not because people are fearless. They are not. Not because the weather is kind. It is absolutely not auditioning for kindness tonight. The caravan survives because each living part accepts a rhythm. The driver walks. The camel steps or the wheel turns. The traveller waits. And you, half hidden among goods in the covered wagon, begin to trust the strange, patient animals carrying you through the storm, one padded footfall at a time. The caravan master's signal moves through the storm before you fully understand it. It begins near the front, where a lantern lifts twice, then lowers. A rider turns his horse carefully through the snow and passes the gesture backward. The next driver answers with a low call, then another, then another. The signal travels from wagon to wagon like a quiet pulse, and the whole caravan slows without confusion. No shouting, no panic, just practiced obedience in the dark. You feel the change beneath you as the wagon loses speed. The wheels turn more heavily. The animals shorten their steps. The covered wagon rocks once, then settles into a slower rhythm. Through the flap, you see the caravan master as a dark shape near the lead animals. His coat is layered with wool and felt, and a hood covers most of his face. Snow clings to his shoulders, making him seem carved from the storm itself. He does not look dramatic. He looks tired, cold, and intensely awake, which is probably the more useful combination. He raises one arm. The caravan pauses. You hear the sounds spread backward, hooves stopping, wheels settling, harnesses creaking, camels groaning, because apparently even stopping requires commentary. Inside your wagon, everyone grows still. The merchant near the front leans forward, listening. The servant wakes with a start, blinking into the lantern glow. Someone whispers a question, but no one answers. Information travels slowly in weather like this, and guessing loudly rarely improves anything. The caravan master dismounts. 2 men join him, their lanterns swing close to the ground. They're examining the surface of the road, or what remains of it beneath the snow. One crouches and brushes at the white crust with a gloved hand. Another tests the ground with a staff. The storm wraps around them, but they continue calmly, as if this is simply another ordinary annoyance brought to them by geography. A well-established feature of long-distance caravan travel was the importance of experienced guides and leaders who understood routes. Water points, seasonal risks, political boundaries, and local customs. Maps could help, but memory, reputation, and practical judgment often mattered more, especially when weather erased familiar landmarks. Tonight, that fact is not abstract. It's standing outside your wagon with snow on its beard, deciding whether the road ahead is safe. The master studies the darkness for a long moment. Perhaps he is looking for a ridge, perhaps listening for water beneath ice, perhaps remembering a place where the track splits near a shallow ravine. You cannot tell. To you, everything beyond the lantern light is simply white and black. To him, the invisible landscape still contains information. That difference may be the reason you are alive. A rider comes back along the line and speaks to the drivers. The message reaches your wagon in pieces. Slow ahead. Keep close. Watch the left side. The words are passed carefully. Not quite shouted. Not quite whispered. Everyone repeats them. This is how order survives poor visibility, not with grand speeches, but with short phrases moving from mouth to mouth. The wagon starts again. This time the driver keeps the animals tighter to the track. The wheels crunch through packed snow. The left side of the wagon dips slightly, then rises. You grip the edge of a crate. The servant across from you does the same. Outside, the caravan master walks near the front rather than riding. That small choice tells you enough. The road ahead is difficult. The wagon rolls forward inch by inch. Wind pushes against the canvas. Snow slides from the roof in soft, heavy sheets. You hear the driver mutter to the animals, his voice low and steady. The camels respond with their usual patient dissatisfaction, but they obey. Their bodies form dark, moving shapes beside the wagons, holding the line through whiteness. One unusual detail from caravan practice is that leaders sometimes arrange travelers by function rather than personal preference. Valuable goods, guards, animals needing attention, and less experienced travelers could be placed in particular positions within the line. Medieval road travel was not a holiday seating chart. No one was asking whether you preferred a window view. You are grateful not to be near the very front. You're also grateful not to be at the rear. Actually, you're grateful to be inside anything at all. The caravan master signals again. This time the line bends slightly right. The motion is slow, almost graceful. Each wagon follows the track of the one before it. The snow hides the ground, but the lead wheels press a temporary path into the surface. Your wagon takes the turn with a deep wooden groan. For a moment, you hear water. Not clearly, just a hollow rush beneath the ice somewhere nearby. Your breath catches. That must be what the master was avoiding. A frozen stream or gully running close to the road, hidden under snow and shadow. One careless turn could break a wheel, injure an animal, overturn cargo. or create the sort of winter disaster no one wants recorded by future storytellers with a smug tone. The caravan passes it, slowly, carefully. No one speaks until the ground levels again. Then the driver exhales so strongly you can hear it from inside the wagon. You do the same. The servant gives you a look that says, "Well, that was unpleasant." And you answer with a look that says, "Yes, and let us not schedule a repeat." Academic opinion remains mixed regarding how formal the command structure of many caravans was, especially when merchants of different backgrounds joined together for mutual protection. Some groups may have accepted a single leader with broad authority. Others may have balanced leadership through negotiation, contracts, and shared interest. Yet in a snowstorm, debate becomes less important than trust. Someone must decide, everyone else must move. The caravan master returns to his horse. He mounts slowly. The line continues. You notice that after the danger passes, no one celebrates. There is no cheer, no dramatic declaration that all is saved. The caravan simply resumes its rhythm, because survival on the road often looks like continuing after a problem instead of pausing to admire yourself. That feels strangely wise. Inside the wagon, a merchant adjusts the cloth over a chest and murmurs something about timing. Another traveller checks a pouch tied under his coat. The servant rubs his hands together and tries to warm them with his breath. You listen to the storm. It no longer feels like one single sound. It has layers, the hiss of fine snow across canvas, the deeper push of wind against the wagon side, the faint patter of ice crystals striking wood, the muffled crunch of animals walking, the soft clink of bells. The caravan master's quiet rules shape all of it. Keep close, move slowly, repeat signals, trust the lead, protect the animals, waste no strength. Do not let fear make you foolish. You wonder how many roads taught him these rules, how many storms, how many wrong turns, how many nights spent deciding whether to stop, continue, turn back, or press towards shelter no one can yet see. The road ahead remains invisible, but the caravan does not feel lost. That is the difference a capable leader makes. Not certainty. No one has certainty tonight. Only direction, only discipline, only the shared belief that careful movement is better than frozen hesitation. You sink deeper beneath your blanket as the wagon rocks onward. The lantern sways, the cargo shifts gently. Outside, the mast's dark figure rides near the front again, half hidden by snow, guiding the line through a world reduced to breath, bells, and trust. And you continue with him. Carried by rules you're only beginning to understand through the pale storm and into the long medieval night. The storm remains outside, but your attention gradually turns inward, not inward toward your thoughts, inward toward the cargo. After hours inside the wagon, surrounded by bundles, crates, sacks, jars, and tightly secured chests, curiosity begins quietly tapping at the door of your imagination. You're sitting in the middle of a moving marketplace. A very cold marketplace. A marketplace with considerably fewer sales pitches than usual. Still, every package around you contains part of a larger story. The wagon sways gently. Lantern light flickers across the cargo. Shadows stretch and contract across wrapped bales and wooden boxes. Some items are familiar, others remain mysterious. The merchant near the front notices your interest. He follows your gaze toward a stack of carefully wrapped bundles. "Silk," he says simply. The word seems almost magical, not because it is rare to hear, but because of everything attached to it. For centuries, silk became one of the most sought-after luxury goods in the world, light, strong, smooth, and difficult to produce. It travelled vast distances from workshop to marketplace, changing hands many times before reaching wealthy buyers. You imagine those folded fabrics inside their wrappings, rich colours hidden beneath protective cloth, deep reds, brilliant blues, golden threads, perhaps embroidered pattern, perhaps simple elegance, perhaps enough value to purchase a comfortable house. It feels strange that something so delicate can survive journeys through deserts, mountains, and snowstorms. Yet here it is, travelling beside you through the dark. Nearby sits a collection of sealed jars packed carefully in straw. The merchant taps one gently. Tea, another valuable cargo. You smile. The thought of tea feels as almost cruel right now. Somewhere inside those containers rests warmth, comfort, and civilization itself. Unfortunately, the tea is merchandise. You're not merchandise. Therefore the tea wins. The merchant seems to read your expression. He smiles faintly, then Ho turns away. You briefly consider whether stealing one handful would be worth becoming a historical cautionary tale. Probably not. Trade records from many regions reveal that caravans often carried an astonishing variety of goods simultaneously. Luxury products travelled beside practical supplies. High-value cargo shared space with everyday necessities. A single wagon might contain textiles, spices, medicines, metal tools, writing materials, and foodstuffs, all destined for different destinations. You glance around again. The variety becomes easier to imagine. A crate near your feet may hold glassware. A chest nearby may contain silver. One wrapped bundle could carry books. Another might contain dyes. Every object has a destination waiting somewhere beyond the storm. The servant beside you wakes and stretches. His eyes drift toward a stack of narrow wooden cases. Paper, he says. You nod. Paper may not sound exciting to future centuries surrounded by screens, printers, and endless documents, but in the medieval world it represented knowledge, administration, trade, religion, and communication. Entire governments depended on it. Merchants depended on it. Scholars depended on it. A sheet of paper could carry a contract, a poem, a tax record, a prayer, or a letter from one side of the known world to another. The cases are wrapped carefully against moisture. Snow is inconvenient. Wet paper is tragedy. The wagon creaks. Outside, bells ring softly among the animals. The caravan continues. A fascinating minor detail concerns the movement of ideas along trade routes. Certain inventions, artistic styles, technologies, and religious practices travelled alongside physical goods, often spreading gradually through countless small exchanges rather than dramatic single events. A trader teaches a technique, a traveller shares a story, a scholar copies a text, a craftsman observes a new method. The world changes quietly. Not all cargo can be weighed. That thought lingers with you. You imagine invisible goods moving through the caravan, languages, recipes, songs, legends, superstitions, business tricks, jokes. The merchant across from you probably knows stories you have never heard. The drivers certainly know roads you have never seen. The caravan master knows landscapes hidden beneath memory. Each person carries an unseen collection of knowledge. The storm outside cannot bury any of it. The lantern sways again. Its glow settles briefly upon a small locked chest. The chest is beautifully made, simple, sturdy, important. You notice how carefully its owner watches it. The merchant catches you looking. He places one hand casually on top. Nothing hostile, just protective. You immediately stop staring. The lesson arrives without words. Some cargo inspires conversation. Some cargo inspires distance. You respect the distinction. The smell of spices returns. Stronger this time. A sack somewhere has shifted enough to release a faint trail of fragrance. Pepper, cinnamon, perhaps cardamom, perhaps cloves. The scents mingle with wool, leather, wood, and cold air. The combination creates an aroma unlike anything found in ordinary homes. It smells like movement. It smells like trade. It smells like distant places sharing a single wagon. One colourful story from caravan lore claims that experienced merchants could identify certain cargoes by scent alone, even before opening containers. Whether that talent was genuine expertise or enthusiastic exaggeration remains difficult to prove, but after several hours among these goods, you begin to believe it may have been possible. The smells are surprisingly distinctive. The servant points toward a small crate secured near the wall. Medicine. That word captures your attention. Inside may be herbs, resins, minerals, prepared remedies, ingredients destined for physicians and healers far away. People along the Silk Road exchanged medical knowledge as well as goods, treatments, ingredients, and practical observations moved gradually between regions, sometimes blending traditions from different cultures. The thought feels comforting somehow. Even across vast distances, people remained interested in the same basic challenges: staying healthy, treating illness, helping family, surviving winter. Human concerns travel well. The wagon suddenly rocks harder. A wheel strikes uneven ground. Everyone shifts slightly. The cargo creaks but remains secure. The merchant immediately checks several straps. Years of experience have clearly trained him to react before problems appear. Nothing has come loose. Still, he inspects everything. Valuable goods encourage vigilance. Researchers remain divided on exactly how much profit individual merchants could expect from long-distance trade, since costs, taxes, risks, local politics, weather, and market fluctuations varied enormously. Some journeys generated fortunes. Others likely produced disappointment, debt, or merely enough success to justify trying again. Looking around the wagon, you realize how much uncertainty surrounds every crate. A shipment may arrive safely or not. Prices may rise or not. Demand may increase or not. Every package contains hope as much as merchandise. Outside, the snow continues falling. Inside, the goods remain silent, patient, waiting. You run your fingers across the rough surface of a textile bundle. Someone wove this cloth, someone packed it, someone loaded it, someone purchased it, someone will eventually sell it. A chain of people stretches behind every object. The Silk Road itself is really a network of such chains. Countless lives connected by exchange. The lantern glow softens. The servant drifts towards sleep again. The merchant settles deeper into his cloak. The wagon rolls onward. You sit among silks, tea, medicines, paper, spices, and mysteries, surrounded by wealth measured not only in coins but in effort, knowledge, and distance. Outside waits the storm. Inside waits the world. And somewhere beyond both lies a customer who has absolutely no idea how much snow, patience, camel opinion, and frozen discomfort stand between them and their future purchase. The caravan does not oppose and stop all at once. It slows first, as if the whole line is listening for permission from the storm. The led animals halt near a low rise of land where the wind breaks unevenly against a ridge of snow-covered stones. Wagons come forward one by one, turning slightly inward, their wheels cutting dark grooves through the white surface. Men and animals gather into a rough crescent. Not quite a camp, not quite safety, but close enough for tired bodies to accept it. Your wagon settles with a final wooden groan. For several breaths, no one moves. Then the work begins. The driver pulls back the canvas flap, and a rush of cold air enters so sharply that everyone inside seems to shrink at the same time. The servant beside you makes a soft sound of protest. The merchant wraps his cloak tighter and begins checking his nearest bundles, because apparently the first rule of stopping is to make certain profit has not developed legs. You climb down carefully. Your boots meet snow. It is deeper than you expected. The cold rises through the soles at once, firm and immediate, as if the earth itself has decided to greet you personally. Around you, The caravan becomes a field of blurred shapes. Wagons loom under white coverings. Camels kneel with slow, awkward dignity. Horses stamp and toss their heads. Lanterns swing in gloved hands. The storm still moves, but the ridge gives some shelter. Not much, just enough. In a medieval winter camp, enough is a beautiful word. You help carry a bundle of fuel from beneath one wagon. It is not a generous pile. Dried brush, bits of wood, dung cakes wrapped against moisture, and a few precious sticks saved for moments exactly like this. Firewood is heavy, and on long routes through open or treeless regions, travellers often relied on whatever fuel could be gathered, purchased, packed, or dried along the way. That is one documented reality of life across many caravan routes. Warmth required, planning long before anyone felt cold. A fire was not merely comfort, it meant hot food, thawed hands, melted snow, safer animals, and a small circle of human confidence in a very large world. You carry the fuel toward a shallow hollow scooped near the wagons. Several travellers work together to build a windbreak. They drag folded mats, spare boards, packs, and a low screen of woven material into place. Snow continues to sweep around the edges, but the centre grows calmer. A man kneels in the hollow. He has the serious expression of someone entrusted with a sacred task, or at least with dry tinder, which may be nearly the same thing. He unwraps a small packet from inside his coat. Within it are fibres, shavings, and scraps kept close to his body to protect them from damp. You watch his hands carefully, even through gloves. His fingers move with practiced patience. No rushing, no dramatic flinging of sparks, just small, exact movements. Everyone nearby seems to breathe more quietly. Fire starting in a snowstorm deserves respect. A few sparks appear. They vanish. Another attempt. A curl of smoke rises. The man bends closer. Shielding the tiny ember with his body, someone holds a cloak to block the wind. Another adds a pinch of dry fibre. The ember glows, fades, then glows again. You find yourself leaning forward, as if encouragement from your face might help. At last, a small flame appears, thin, fragile, almost embarrassed to be there. Then it catches. The tinder brightens. A twig takes flame. Smoke thickens and drifts sideways before the windbreak catches it. A few people exhale at once. Someone laughs softly, not because anything's funny, but because relief sometimes needs a sound. The fire grows slowly. No one wastes fuel by making it large. This is not a feast blaze. This is a survival flame. A careful orange tongue licking at dry brush, then dung cake, then a few pieces of wood. The smell is earthy, smoky, and slightly bitter. It clings immediately to your clothes, your hair, and the back of your throat. You suspect you will smell like this until the next proper washing, which, given current weather conditions, may occur sometime after the invention of patience. Still, the warmth reaches your hands. You hold them toward the flames. The heat is almost painful at first. Your fingers prickle as feeling returns. You wiggle them slowly around the fire. Others do the same, palms out, shoulders hunched, faces glowing amber beneath hoods and scarves. A strange roadside tradition in some places held that the first successful flame of a difficult camp should not be insulted by careless words. Whether anyone truly believed the fire had feelings is hard to know, but after watching that tiny flame struggle into life, you understand why people might speak gently near it. The camels settle beyond the wagons, some kneel in the snow, legs folded beneath them, others stand with the loads loosened or partially removed. Animal handlers move between them, checking straps and brushing away ice. Their silhouettes pass in and out of lantern light, quiet and methodical. The caravan master walks the edge of the camp. He studies the windbreaks, the animal line, the wagon positions, the distance between fires. He says little. When he does speak, people listen. The rules from the road continue here, only softened into camp routine, Keep fuel dry, keep animals close, keep watch and share heat. Do not wander into the storm unless you are strongly attached to becoming a cautionary anecdote. A pot appears, then another. Snow is packed into one, and soon it begins to collapse into water over the small flame. The transformation feels almost magical. White cold becoming steam, storm becoming drink, weather becoming usefulness. You crouch near the fire, knees aching, boots slowly steaming. The air smells of smoke, wool, leather, wet fur and melting snow. A little later, something savoury joins it, broth perhaps, or dried meat softening in water. The scent spreads through the camp with gentle authority, and suddenly everyone seems more awake. Opinions differ regarding how often caravans cooked full meals during storm halts rather than simply eating preserved food inside wagons or tents. Weather, fuel, security, and exhaustion all mattered, but tonight, even a thin hot broth feels worth the effort. Warm liquid can change the entire mood of a camp. You notice how people arrange themselves around the fire, not randomly. The coldest hands come closer. Those with tasks move in and out. The older merchant sits where smoke does not blow into his face, which proves experience has many forms. The servant stays near you, holding his palms toward the flames with a look of deep gratitude. He has said very little tonight, but his expression is eloquent. It says that fire is civilization, medicine, luxury, and emotional support all at once. The wind lifts again, striking the edge of the makeshift screen. The flame bends low, everyone freezes. Then it straightens. The small circle relaxes. You realize the fire has become the camp's heartbeat. Each flicker matters. Each breath of heat draws the group inward, beyond the ring of light. The snowstorm remains vast and indifferent. But inside this amber circle, faces become human again. Lines soften, eyes brighten, shoulders lower. A man begins rubbing warmth into his cheeks. Another pours melted snow into a cup. Someone offers a piece of dried fruit to the servant, who accepts it like a royal gift. You take your place beside them, close enough to feel the heat, far enough not to steal it all, because medieval manners apparently still apply when everyone is freezing. The wagon waits behind you, dark, covered, packed with goods. Soon you will climb back into it, carrying smoke in your cloak and warmth in your hands. But for now, you remain by the little fire beneath the windbreak, listening to snow hiss at the edges, watching steam rise from the pot, and feeling the storm pushed back by the oldest comfort human beings have ever trusted. The broth is not impressive. If a modern restaurant attempted to charge money for it, there would probably be complaints. You stare into the small wooden bowl handed to you. A little liquid, a few floating pieces of dried vegetables, tiny fragments of meat, perhaps, possibly, hopefully. The contents are modest enough that certainty becomes difficult, and yet the rising steam alone feels magnificent. You wrap both hands around the bowl. Warmth seeps into your fingers. The scent rises toward your face. Salt, smoke, fat. The simple fragrance of something hot on a cold night. Around the fire, the travellers settle into a loose circle. The storm still hisses beyond the wagons, but here the world has narrowed into firelight and shared food. Faces glow gold and amber. Shadows dance across cloaks and bundles. Every breath becomes visible in the cold air before vanishing upward. You take your first sip. The broth is thin, wonderful. It slides down into your stomach like liquid comfort. Immediately, your entire body seems to remember that warmth exists. The servant beside you closes his eyes after drinking. Not from exhaustion, from appreciation. The expression needs no translation. A few moments later, someone begins passing around pieces of bread. The bread is dense and hard from the cold. You could probably use it to repair a damaged section of wall. Still, after dipping it into the broth, it softens enough to chew. Slowly, patiently, your jaw receives its own workout. Nobody complains. A hungry traveller becomes remarkably forgiving. Records from caravan towns describe travellers consuming a wide range of foods depending on region, season, wealth, and available supplies. Bread, dried fruit, nuts, preserved meat, grains, dairy products, and simple soups frequently appeared because they travelled well and provided reliable nourishment during long journeys. Tonight's meal would not impress a royal banquet, but it is not meant to. It is fuel, warmth, continuity. The meal does something else too. It slows people down. Conversations begin. At first, only small exchanges. Questions about the road, comments about the weather, predictions concerning tomorrow. The caravan master remains standing near one of the wagon, speaking quietly with two drivers, even while eating. He watches the camp. Leadership apparently refuses to take evenings off. Nearby, an older merchant unwraps a small cloth bundle. Inside are dried apricots. Several heads immediately turn. You would think he had revealed treasure. In fairness, perhaps he has. He offers a few pieces around the fire. The servant receives one and stares at it for a moment before eating. His face brightens. The transformation is almost comical. One small piece of fruit and suddenly winter seems less determined to destroy everyone. You accept one as well. The sweetness arrives gently after hours of cold air and simple food. It tastes of sunlight, orchards, and warmer seasons. For a moment, the snowstorm feels very far away. A curious custom reported in certain trading communities involved merchants exchanging small samples of regional foods during journeys. The practice could help establish goodwill, create business relationships, and satisfy natural human curiosity about distant places. Looking around the fire, the idea makes perfect sense. Food travels quickly between strangers. Stories often follow. The older merchant points toward the dried fruit. From the west, he says. Another traveller gestures toward a small pouch of nuts. From farther south. Soon people are identifying origins, not formally, not competitively, just sharing. A spice from one region, tea from an oia, dates from somewhere warmer than this frozen landscape could currently imagine. The fire crackles softly. The conversation grows. You listen more than you speak. A driver tells a story about a sandstorm that lasted 3 days. A mule handler claims one particularly stubborn animal once bit a tax collector. Several listeners seem suspiciously pleased by that story. Someone else describes a market so crowded that a person could barely move between stalls. The images drift around the fire. Deserts, cities, mountain passes, gardens, ports, temples, roads. The caravan becomes larger than the storm, larger than the camp. Every traveller carries pieces of distant worlds. You realise that many of these people would never have met under ordinary circumstances. Different languages, different customs, different religions, different homes. Yet here they are sharing broth beside a snowstorm. Trade creates unusual friendships, not permanent perhaps, but real enough. Evidence preserved from medieval travel accounts suggests that caravan journeys often brought together remarkably diverse groups. Merchants, guides, pilgrims, craftsmen, guards, translators, animal handlers, and officials could all find themselves moving along the same routes. The Silk Road was less a single road than a moving conversation stretching across continents. You glance toward the camels. Even they appear calmer now. Their silhouettes rest beyond the firelight. Some chew slowly. Others sit motionless beneath gathering snow. The bells have mostly fallen silent. Only an occasional soft clink drifts through the darkness. A younger traveller produces a small stringed instrument from a protective case. Several people immediately object, not because of the music, because they are worried about the instrument. The owner laughs and carefully tunes it near the fire. Soon a gentle melody emerges, nothing dramatic, nothing fast. Just a simple tune floating above the crackling flames. The music settles over the camp like another blanket. Even the wind seems quieter. You watch sparks drift upward into darkness. The stars remain hidden behind clouds. The storm owns the sky tonight, yet the camp feels surprisingly peaceful. Researchers have proposed several explanations for why long-distance trade networks endured despite enormous risks from weather, disease, theft, political instability, and simple bad luck. Profit certainly mattered, so did necessity, but listening to the travellers around you, another factor becomes apparent. Human beings are curious. They always have been. People want things from elsewhere. Objects, ideas, knowledge, experiences, connections. The road survives because curiosity survives. The musician finishes his tune. Several listeners nod appreciatively. The servant beside you has nearly fallen asleep sitting upright. His bowl rests empty in his lap. A driver laughs quietly and hands him another piece of bread. The servant wakes immediately. Food remains a powerful motivational tool. The fire burns lower. Someone adds fuel carefully. Not too much, just enough. The glow strengthens again. You notice how different everyone's faces appear now compared to earlier. Less tense, less guarded. Warmth changes people. Food changes people. Shared hardship changes people. The storm has not ended. The cold has not disappeared. Tomorrow's road still waits. Yet for this brief stretch of evening, nobody is thinking far ahead. They are simply present, eating, talking, listening, resting. You finish the last of your broth. The bowl is nearly dry. A trace of warmth lingers in your hands. Nearby conversations fade into a comfortable murmur. The smell of smoke clings to your clothes. The lanterns glow softly among the wagons. Beyond them, snow continues falling across the endless Silk Road. But here beside the fire, among merchants, drivers, servants, travellers, camels, dories, and shared food, the world feels smaller and kinder. Not safe exactly, the road rarely promises safety, but for one winter evening, gathered around a humble meal beneath a stormy sky, it offers something nearly as valuable: companionship. The meal fades slowly into quiet. Bowls are emptied, wiped, stacked, and tucked away. The last pieces of bread vanish into tired hands. The fire settles lower, glowing red beneath a thin lace of ash. Around it, the travellers do not immediately rise. They remain in that soft after-meal stillness. When the body is warmer, the stomach is less offended, and even the storm seems to pause at the edge of listening. Snow continues to fall beyond the windbreak. It drifts across the wagon roofs and gathers in pale ridges along the wheels. Lanterns hang from poles, their flames wavering in small golden cages. Camels kneel like dark hills in the whiteness. Horses stand close together, steam rising from their flanks. Somewhere behind you, a mule shakes its head, and a bell gives one sleepy note. Then, one by one, people begin turning inward, not only towards sleep, toward prayer, toward habit, toward protection. You see it first in the older merchant who has shared the dried apricots. He takes a small cloth from inside his coat and spreads it carefully on a dry patch of ground near the wagon. He moves slowly, not making a display of anything. His body is stiff from travel, but his gestures have the ease of long practice. A little distance away, another traveller touches a small object tied beneath his collar. Perhaps a charm, perhaps a religious token, perhaps something given by a wife, mother, teacher, or friend before he left home. He holds it briefly, eyes lowered, lips moving without sound. Near the animals, a driver murmurs words over his hands before rubbing warmth into his fingers. The camp grows quieter. No command has been given, no bell announces a sacred moment. Yet everyone seems to understand that night on the road belongs partly to forces larger than the caravan. Faith travelled constantly along the Silk Road. Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Zoroastrian traditions, local cults, folk practices, and many other beliefs moved through towns, deserts, mountain passes, and caravanserais with merchants, monks, pilgrims, soldiers, translators, and refugees. Trade carried objects, but it also carried ways of seeing the world. Tonight, under the snow, those beliefs sit close together around the same tired fire. No one argues theology. That would be ambitious in this weather. Also deeply unhelpful. Instead, people make room. A man waits before crossing near the cloth laid on the ground. Another shifts his bowl so someone has space to kneel. The servant beside you lowers his voice, as if quietness itself has become a shared courtesy. You sit wrapped in your smoky cloak, watching the scene without intruding. It feels intimate, not secret, not dramatic, just human. Cold makes the body small, but prayer seems to widen the night again. The older merchant bows his head, his breath clouds in front of him. Snow catches briefly in his hair before melting. The firelight touches the side of his face, revealing deep lines around his eyes, lines that may have been made by sun, worry, laughter, bargaining, and years of pretending that road conditions are more. Nearby, a younger man ties a strip of coloured thread more firmly around a wagon peg. You noticed the thread earlier, fluttering near the harness gear. Now he checks it with careful fingers. One obscure detail mentioned in later folklore along several trade routes is the habit of tying coloured threads, bits of cloth or small tokens to wagons, saddles or animal gear for protection, luck, remembrance or blessing. The meaning changed from place to place and sometimes from person to person. Tonight it may mean nothing more complicated than please let us reach shelter. That is a very respectable prayer. The caravan master stands near the edge of the camp, speaking softly with a guard. Even he pauses when he passes a cluster of travellers in prayer. He does not bow with them. He does not interrupt them either. His respect is practical, almost quiet enough to miss. On a road shared by many cultures, survival depends partly on patience with difference. A snowstorm can make philosophers of people who might otherwise be busy negotiating prices. You notice a small lamp being lit near the rear wagon, not a large lantern, a small flame protected by a cup of metal and horn. Its light is set near a chest, and a traveller sits beside it with folded hands. The glow trembles against his face. He whispers a line, waits, and whispers another. You cannot understand the words, still the rhythm soothes you. The syllables rise and fall like breathing. The servant beside you finally speaks. He tells you that some travellers never sleep before saying the names of those waiting at home. He says it simply, almost shyly, then he looks down at his own hands. You do not ask whom he names. Some questions belong to the cold and the dark. The surviving evidence leaves unanswered questions about how ordinary travellers blended formal religion with practical folk protection on the road. Written sources often describe official faiths, famous pilgrims, and major institutions. But the small gestures of unnamed people are harder to recover. A whispered phrase before sleep, a knot tied in wool, a charm tucked under a sleeve. These things rarely leave clear records, yet they likely matter deeply. You think of the wagon full of goods, silk wrapped in cloth, paper sealed against damp, tea protected from moisture, medicines packed in straw, everything valuable guarded carefully. Perhaps prayers are another kind of wrapping, a way to bind fear, a way to carry home through distance. The wind presses against the camp again. The fire bends low. Snow scatters across the edge of the windbreak, sparkling briefly in lantern light. A few travellers shift closer together. Someone adds a small piece of fuel to the coals. The flame rises. A guard walks past with a spear held low, boots crunching. He steps carefully around the praying merchant's cloth without being asked. The gesture is small, but it stays with you, Respect often survives in details, no grand speech, just a foot placed elsewhere. Beyond the camp, the road waits beneath snow. Somewhere beyond that are cities with towers and domes, markets and workshops, temples and mosques, monasteries and shrines, graves and homes. Every traveller here has come from somewhere shaped by meaning. Every traveller is going somewhere unknown. The firelight seems softer now. People finish their prayers at different times. Some return quietly to bowls and blankets. Some sit for a while longer, staring into the coals. The older merchant folds his cloth with careful hands and tucks it inside his coat. The younger man pats the coloured thread once, as if sealing a bargain with hope. The servant beside you closes his eyes and whispers a few names so quietly that even the wind is allowed to forget them. You lower your head, not because you know the right words, but because silence feels appropriate. For a moment, the caravan is not a business, not a line of animals, not a collection of cold travellers hauling goods through bad weather. It is a small human circle beneath a storm, different beliefs, different languages, different fears, the same snow falling over everyone, the same need for warmth, the same wish to wake in the morning. And as the fire settles into its red breathing, you feel the night deepen around the wagons, not empty and not hostile, but full of quiet offerings carried upward, with smoke, steam, and whispered hope. The prayers fade, the bowls disappear, the last quiet conversations sink into the snow-filled darkness. Now another mood settles over the camp. Not fear exactly, something lighter than fear, something older. Watchfulness is. The fire burns lower, throwing a reddish glow across wagon wheels and packed snow. The camp seems smaller than before. The darkness beyond the lanterns appears larger. You notice it immediately. People are relaxing, but not completely. No one truly relaxes on the Silk Road. Not in a snowstorm, not beside valuable cargo, not beneath a sky that can hide almost anything. The servant beside you finally yawns and climbs back into the wagon. Several others follow. Blankets are adjusted. Cloaks are wrapped tighter. The promise of sleep begins pulling travellers away from the fire, yet a few remain standing. The guards, the drivers assigned to first watch, the caravan master, their work is not finished. You pull your cloak closer and linger near the fading warmth. The wind has weakened somewhat, but snow still drifts through the darkness in pale ribbons. One guard walks slowly around the outer edge of the camp. His boots crunch softly. His spear rests against one shoulder. A lantern hangs from his free hand. The flame sways with each step. You follow the light until it disappears behind a wagon. A few moments later it reappears, then vanishes again. The movement becomes strangely comforting, a reminder that someone is awake, someone is looking, someone is paying attention while the rest of this camp begins surrendering to sleep. Accounts written centuries ago describe caravan guards as an essential part of many trading expeditions. Valuable goods attracted attention. Some routes crossed remote regions where assistance might be days away. A well-organised caravan often depended upon disciplined watchkeeping as much as it depended upon strong animals. Tonight that reality feels very close. You glance toward darkness beyond the wagons. Nothing moves there, at least nothing visible. That does not stop your imagination. Human imagination rarely needs permission. The storm has already hidden hills, streams, and landmarks. Why not thieves as well? The thought seems to occur to others too. A merchant quietly checks the lock on a chest. Another shifts a bundle closer to the wagon. Someone ties an extra knot around a cargo covering. None of it appears dramatic. Just small habits repeated over many journeys. Preparation has a way of disguising itself as routine. The caravan master circles the camp once more before stopping near the largest wagon. He exchanges a few words with a guard. Neither man raises his voice. You catch only fragments. Watch the eastern side. Keep the lantern covered. Wake me if necessary. Simple instructions, clear instructions. the sort that become valuable after midnight. A tale repeated in market towns held that some thieves studied caravans for days before striking. According to the story, they learned routines, counted guards, observed cargo, and waited patiently for opportunities. Whether every detail of those tales is true is difficult to know. Still, the stories survive for a reason. Roads attract honest travellers. Roads also attract people with different business models. You stare out into the snow again. Nothing, only darkness, only wind, only drifting white shapes. And yet your ears begin noticing things. The scrape of snow against wood, the rustle of canvas, the shifting of an animal's weight, the faint creak of leather. Every sound feels larger than before. Perhaps this is what nighttime watchfulness does. It sharpens ordinary details until they seem significant. Nearby, a horse lifts its head suddenly. You freeze. The horse stares into darkness. Its ears point forward. The guard turns as well. For several breaths, nobody moves. Then the horse lowers its head and resumes chewing. False alarm. The servant inside the wagon would probably describe this moment as the horse remembered something. You almost laugh. Almost. The mood remains too quiet. Driver sitting near the fire tosses another small piece of fuel into the coals. Tiny sparks rise upward. They vanish quickly. The darkness reclaims them. The available records are frustratingly incomplete regarding the true scale of bandit activity along every section of the Silk Road. Some regions experienced long periods of relative security. Others became notorious for raids during times of political instability. Conditions could change dramatically depending on season, location, and local authority. The uncertainty itself becomes part of the story. Travellers rarely knew exactly what waited ahead. The same remains true tonight. Perhaps there are no thieves within 50 miles. Perhaps there are. No one can prove either possibility from beside a campfire. A guard returns from his circuit. Snow clings to his boots. He pauses briefly near the flames before continuing onward. The routine repeats. Walk, observe, listen, return. It seems almost boring, which is exactly what everyone wants. Boring guards often mean peaceful nights. The camels remain kneeling beyond the wagons, their shapes barely visible now. Occasionally one groans. The sound echoes through the darkness with remarkable dramatic flair. You have spent enough time around camels to suspect they enjoy making ordinary activities sound historically significant. One particularly odd belief suggested that camels sometimes sensed danger before humans did. Certain caravan veterans claimed they paid close attention when normally calm animals became restless for no obvious reason. Whether this reflected genuine animal awareness or selective memory remains uncertain. Still, you find yourself glancing toward the animals whenever one makes a noise. The road has a way of encouraging superstition. Cold helps, darkness helps, exhaustion helps even more. You finally climb back into the wagon. The interior feels surprisingly welcoming now. Smoke clings to the blankets. The air carries traces of spices and wool. Cargo sits exactly where you left it. The servant is already asleep. His breathing rises and falls steadily. The merchant rests against a bale of textiles with his arms folded across his chest. Even in sleep, he somehow appears protective of his merchandise. You settle into your corner. Outside. The guards continue moving through the camp. Lantern light occasionally slips through gaps in the canvas. A brief glow, then darkness, then another glow. The pattern becomes rhythmic, comforting, like distant lighthouse beams crossing a stormy shore. Experts disagree over the extent to which fear of theft shaped everyday behaviour on long caravan journeys, compared with more immediate concerns such as weather, illness, or animal care. For many travellers, the answer was probably simple. All of them mattered. A blizzard could end a journey, a broken camel could end a journey, a serious illness could end a journey, so could thieves. The road demanded respect from every direction. You pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders. The wagon rocks slightly as the wind brushes against it. Outside, the camp remains awake in fragments, a guard walking, a horse shifting, a lantern swinging, a fire breathing softly beneath its blanket of ash. Beyond that lies the endless snowy darkness, silent, patient, impossible to fully know, yet the camp endures within its small circle of light. The guards continue their rounds, the merchants protect their cargoes, the caravan master sleeps lightly, ready to wake at the slightest concern, and you lie among silks, spices, paper, and dreams, listening to the sounds of vigilance drifting through the winter night, while somewhere beyond the snow, real danger or imagined danger waits unseen in the dark. Eventually, the guards become part of the background, their footsteps continue, their lanterns continue, but your attention drifts elsewhere, towards sleep, or at least toward the long negotiation that precedes sleep when you are attempting to rest inside a medieval caravan wagon during a snowstorm. You settle deeper among the cargo, the textiles supporting your back feel slightly softer than before. Either they truly are comfortable, or exhaustion has begun improving their reputation. The distinction no longer seems important. The servant beside you is asleep, properly asleep, not the light dozing of earlier. The deep, committed sleep of a person who has reached the point where even a camel performing an operatic complaint somewhere outside cannot interrupt him. You admire that. The merchant remains awake, at least for now. His eyes are closed, but every so often he opens one briefly and checks the nearest chest, then closes it again, then opens it again 10 minutes later. Some people count sheep before sleeping. Merchants apparently count cargo. The wagon interior glows softly from a lantern hanging near the front. Its flame has been turned low, just enough light to prevent complete darkness. The glow paints gentle shapes across the bundles and crates. The shadows seem larger now. The wagon feels larger too, or perhaps quieter. Without conversation, every sound becomes more noticeable. The creak of rope, the whisper of cloth, the faint settling of wood as temperature changes, the slow breathing of sleeping travellers. Outside, the wind brushes against the canvas in long soft sighs. The storm has not ended, it has merely become tired, much like everyone else. You pull your blanket closer around your shoulders. The wool smells faintly of smoke from the fire. The scent is comforting now. Earlier it seemed harsh. Now it feels like proof that warmth existed. That little fire beneath the windbreak already feels far away. Yet traces of it remain. In your clothes, in your hair, in the memory of hot broth. The road was known for creating unusual sleeping arrangements. Travellers rested in caravanserais, tents, private homes, monasteries, wagons, storage rooms, courtyards, and occasionally beneath open skies when conditions forced difficult choices. Comfort varied dramatically. Tonight's wagon falls into the category of better than outside, which is sufficient. You stretch one leg carefully, immediately strike a crate. The crate wins. You retreat. Some battles are not worth pursuing. The lantern sways gently. Its movement reminds you of the wagon's journey earlier. Wheel turns through snow, camels pushing forward, the caravan master studying invisible roads. All of it feels distant already. The human mind is strange that way. An event can happen only hours ago and still seem wrapped in memory. Perhaps because night changes everything. A faint sound drifts through the canvas. Bell, pause, bell, one of the camels shifting position. The noise is soft enough to become soothing. A story passed between merchants claimed that experienced caravan travellers could identify particular animals solely by the sound of their bells at night. According to the tale, some handlers knew every camel in a large caravan the way shepherds knew individual sheep. Whether the story is entirely true hardly matters, you can believe it. After enough miles together, familiarity grows, The servant suddenly snores, not loudly, just enough to surprise himself. He snorts awake, looks around in confusion, then immediately falls asleep again. The recovery is impressive. The merchant finally smiles, the first smile you've seen from him in hours. It disappears quickly, but not before you notice. The atmosphere inside the wagon softens further. Even the cargo seems quieter. You glance toward one of the tea crates, toward the silk bundles, toward the chests and sacks packed around you. The goods have become companions of a sort, silent companions, extremely expensive companions, but companions nonetheless. They have shared the storm, shared the road, shared the cold. The historical picture becomes less clear when researchers try to reconstruct the private emotional experiences of ordinary travellers. Ledgers survive, contracts survive, official reports survive, feelings rarely do. We know what people traded more easily than we know what they worried about while lying awake at midnight. That absence creates an interesting question. What would these travellers have thought about family profit weather? Religion, the nexit, a lost friend, an unpaid debt. Perhaps all of them, perhaps none, perhaps sometimes a tired traveller simply thought about finding a comfortable place for his elbow. You certainly understand that concern. You shift again, the crate remains unconvinced by your efforts. Outside, the camp settles deeper into night. Guard rotations continue, animal handlers sleep in turns, the fire has become a low red glow. Occasionally a gust of wind sends a handful of sparks upward. You can see them through a tiny gap in the wagon covering. Brief orange stars, then darkness. The wagon feels warmer now. Not truly warmer, just less cold. Bodies generate heat, blankets trap it, canvas slows the wind. Gradually a fragile pocket of comfort develops. You become aware of the simple rhythm surrounding you. Breathing, lantern flicker, wind, bell, breathing again. The repetition feels almost hypnotic. You close your eyes, open them, close them again. The line between wakefulness and sleep begins to blur. Thoughts lose their sharp edges. A memory drifts through your mind. The older merchant sharing dried apricots, the servant smiling at a piece of bread, the coloured thread tied near the wagon, the camel offended by its harness. Each image floats gently through the darkness, then drifts away. Some caravan veterans insisted that dreams changed on long journeys. They claimed roads filled the mind with strange combinations of places, people, and memories, markets blended with mountains, home blended with distant cities, familiar faces appeared in unfamiliar landscapes. Perhaps there is something to that. Travel stretches imagination as well as geography. Your eyelids grow heavier. The lantern becomes a blurry golden shape. The wagon's shadows soften. The servant's breathing becomes part of the background. The merchant finally stops checking his cargo and settles against a bale. Victory at last. Even commerce must sleep eventually. You feel yourself sinking further into the blankets. The wool scratches your cheek slightly. The fabric beneath your head smells faintly of spice. Outside, snow continues falling over the silk road. It covers wagon tracks, covers hoof prints, covers the world in quiet layers. Inside the wagon, however, life remains. Small, temporary, warm enough. You lie among silks, tea, paper, medicines, and sleeping strangers. The storm grows more distant. The bells become softer, the lantern dimmer. The road itself seems to fade from awareness. And as the wagon rests beneath its blanket of snow, you drift slowly towards sleep, surrounded by cargo, stories, and the gentle sounds of a medieval caravan waiting for dawn. Sleep does not arrive as a single door closing. It comes in layers. First your body settles, heavy beneath wool and smoke-scented cloth. Then the sounds of the wagon loosen their edges. The guard's footsteps outside become less like footsteps and more like a distant rhythm. The wind softens into a long breath against the canvas. The camels fade into shadow and memory, their bells ringing somewhere between the road and your dreams. You are still aware of the wagon, still aware of cold wood beneath you, still aware of the crate near your foot, the bundle under your shoulder, and the faint smell of spices tucked somewhere in the dark, but the mind begins wandering. And on a road like this, where every traveller carries places inside them, dreams do not stay in one country for long. You drift first towards a city you have not yet reached, its gates right from darkness beneath a pale morning sky. Snow lies in the corners of the road, but inside the walls, the streets glow with lanterns and waking fires. You imagine shopkeepers lifting wooden shutters, bakers brushing ash from ovens, water carriers moving through alleys, and merchants already arguing about prices with the sacred energy of people who believe everyone else is being unreasonable. The dream smells of bread, warm bread, a cruelly specific dream for someone sleeping in a wagon. You see market stalls beneath awnings, silks hang like captured sunsets, red cloth, blue cloth, green cloth shot through with gold thread. A buyer lifts one corner between careful fingers, testing the smoothness, never knowing that the same fabric rode beside your ribs through a night of snow and camel breath. Then the dream shifts. You stand beneath a high arch in another city, perhaps Samarkand, perhaps Bukhara, perhaps a place your sleeping mind has invented from half-heard stories around the fire. Domes rise beyond the rooftops, tiled in deep blue, courtyards open behind carved doors. A fountain speaks quietly in the centre of a courtyard where travellers wash dust from their hands. The air smells of wet stone, horse sweat, and cooking onions, a call to prayer or a temple bell. Or perhaps both mixed together by dream logic moves through the city. The Silk Road was famous not because one culture dominated it, but because so many cultures met along it. Cities across Central Asia became places where languages, goods, religious traditions, artistic styles, and technologies crossed paths. In your dream, that meeting becomes sound, voices overlap, Persian, Turkic, Chinese, Arabic, Sogdian echoes from earlier centuries, languages you cannot name, languages your dreaming self somehow almost understands. You follow the sound into a covered market. The ceiling is dark with smoke. Shafts of winter light fall through small openings above. Men and women pass through narrow lanes between stalls. A scribe sits with paper and ink, copying a contract in careful lines. A metalworker taps a pattern into bronze. A healer weighs dried roots in a little balance. A tea seller pours liquid from a height with such confidence that you feel personally unqualified to hold a cup. Nearby, the older merchant from the camp stands beside his dried apricots. He has become larger than life in the dream, almost kingly, presiding over fruit as if it were a diplomatic achievement. Perhaps, after tonight, it is you move deeper into the market. There are glass beads from one region, carved bone from another, wool felt, lacquered boxes, knives, saddles, medicines, paper, spears, and small religious images wrapped in cloth. Each object seems to whisper of distance. Campfire lore sometimes claim that certain goods absorb the spirit of the places they pass through. A silk cloth carried not only silk but dust from roads, prayers from inns, smoke from winter fires, and the touch of every hand that protected it. A practical historian might raise an eyebrow at that. Still, in the dream, it feels true. You reach out toward a roll of silk. Before you touch it, the market melts into snow. Now you are walking beneath a row of wooden balconies in a mountain town. Icicles hang from the roofs. The street is narrow, packed hard with frost. Somewhere a donkey brays with deep personal dissatisfaction. A child laughs behind a doorway. Lanterns burn behind oiled paper windows. You turn a corner and find monks crossing a courtyard with their robes gathered against the cold. In another direction, a merchant speaks with a tax official beside a gate. A traveller leads a horse toward a stable. A woman pours water from a jug, and steam rises instantly in the freezing air. The dream is gentle but restless. It does not let you remain anywhere long, perhaps because the road itself never does. You are carried next across desert, not winter desert, a warm one. Golden sand beneath a wide evening sky. The snowstorm has vanished completely. Instead, heat rises from the earth in shimmering waves. Camels move in a long line toward an oasis of dark palms. A caravan bell rings clear and bright. You smell dust, dry grass, leather, and sun-warmed wool. Then you remember the real camel beside your wagon, snow on its lashes, judging you with royal calm. The desert camel in the dream turns its head. It has the same eyes, naturally. Even in dreams, camels maintain continuity. You almost laugh in your sleep. Inside the wagon, your body shifts slightly beneath the blanket. The servant mutters something. The merchant breathes heavily through his nose. Outside, the wind presses the canvas, then releases it. But your dream continues. You arrive at a caravanserai, not the one you hope to reach tomorrow, a grander one. Larger than any real building has a right to be in a sleepy imagination. Its walls rise golden in late light. Its gate is high enough for loaded camels to pass beneath without complaint. Although they probably complain anyway as a matter of tradition, inside lies a courtyard full of travellers. Animals kneel, men unload goods, women carry baskets, lamps burn beneath arches, smoke rises from kitchens. A fountain splashes in the centre, which seems extravagant after a night of melting snow for water. You walk through the courtyard slowly. Every room around it contains a different world in one. Scholars argue over a manuscript in another. Merchants count coins in another. A storyteller gestures dramatically while listeners lean closer in another. A tired traveller simply sleeps with his mouth open, contributing nothing to world civilization but clearly enjoying himself. No single explanation has fully satisfied researchers when it comes to how ordinary travellers experienced cultural exchange emotionally. Did they feel wonder, suspicion, fatigue, opportunity, homesickness? Probably all of these depending on the day, the place, the weather, and whether dinner was decent. In your dream, cultural exchange feels like warmth after cold, a room full of strangers, different clothing, different prayers, different accents, the same desire for rest. You move toward an open doorway. Beyond it is night again. Rooftops glimmer under stars. Not snow clouds this time, but clear stars. So many stars that the sky looks woven. You climb a stairway and stand above the sleeping city. Below, lamps burn in courtyards. Dogs bark in distant alleys. Somewhere music plays. Somewhere a baby cries. Somewhere a pot lid clatters and someone curses very politely. Life continues in every direction. That thought calms you. The road is difficult, yes. The storm is cruel, yes. Your wagon bed is still a questionable arrangement of cargo and optimism. Yet beyond the storm, the world is full of destinations, markets waking, caravanserais glowing, cities waiting, homes reared. You drift back toward the wagon slowly. The dream folds in on itself. Domes become snowdrifts. Market lanterns become the low wagon flame. Voices become wind. Fountains become the soft hiss of snow against canvas. The camel bell rings once, very far away. Then again, closer. You breathe in the smell of wool, smoke, spice, and cold wood. For a moment, you are nowhere and everywhere along the Silk Road, in the wagon, in the market, in the courtyard, beneath the stars, beside the snow, and finally wrapped among trade goods and distant city dreams. You sink deeper into sleep while the caravan waits under the storm for morning. You wake before dawn because the silence has changed, not ended, changed. The storm is still there, but its sound has thickened into something dull and heavy. The canvas above you no longer snaps as sharply. The wind no longer sweeps cleanly over the wagon. Instead, snow presses against everything. weighing the world down, muffling every edge. For a few moments, you do not move. You lie beneath your blanket, listening. The servant beside you breathes softly. The merchant has turned in his sleep and now holds one arm over the nearest chest, as if guarding it even in dreams. The lantern has gone out, leaving the wagon in a deep blue darkness. Somewhere outside, an animal shifts and the snow answers with a soft slide. Your first thought is simple. It is colder. Your second thought is worse. The wagon is not moving because the whole camp is trapped under snow. You sit up slowly. Bad idea. The cold finds the back of your neck at once. You pull the blanket around yourself and peer toward the opening in the canvas. Frost has formed along the inner edge. Tiny white feathers clinging to the seams. Your breath rises in front of you. The cargo around you looks strange in the faint pre-dawn light, as if the silks, tea, medicines, and paper have all become part of a frozen cave. You reach for your boots. They're stiff. Of course they are. Because apparently even boots would like a dramatic role in this journey. You force your feet into them with quiet determination and immediate regret. Outside, voices murmur, not sleepy voices, working voices. You push aside the flap and look out. The camp has almost disappeared. Wagons sit half buried in snow, their wheels swallowed nearly to the hubs. Ropes are glazed with ice. Canvas covers sag under white weight. The fire hollow from last night is gone, hidden beneath a smooth mound. The windbreak stands crooked. Part of it collapsed, part of it frozen into place like an accidental monument to optimism. The sky is not yet bright. It is a pale grey pressure above the world. Snow still falls, but more slowly now, drifting rather than rushing. The storm has lost its rage, but not its consequences. Men move between the wagons with shovels, staffs, boards, and gloved hands. Some clear wheels, others brush snow from the cargo covers. Animal handlers work near the camels, breaking crusted snow from blankets and harness straps. Winter journeys often require travellers to begin the day by repairing the damage done overnight. Snow, frost, frozen ropes, stiff leather, buried paths, and chilled animals could delay movement for hours before a caravan even returned to the road. You climb down, your boots sink past the ankles. Cold snow presses around your feet, dry at first, then sharply wet where your body warms it. You steady yourself against the wagon side. The wood is slick with frost. Your fingers stick slightly to the surface before you pull them away. The servant climbs down behind you, looking personally betrayed by the morning. The expression is fair. A driver nearby is digging around one of the front wheels. He strikes packed snow with a wooden spade, then scrapes ice from the rim. Each blow makes a dull sound. The wheel itself is locked in place, fused by snow, mud, and freezing night. The wagon has become part of the road. You help where you can. At first, you are clumsy. You do not know where to stand. You do not know which snow matters most. You do not know whether to pull, scrape, lift, or stay politely out of the way. A handler points toward a drift packed against the rear wheel. There, that is clear enough. You kneel and begin digging with a board. The work warms you faster than the blanket did. Your shoulders protest. Your hands ache inside your gloves. Snow crumbles away in heavy pieces. Beneath the upper powder lies a dense crust where wind has pressed it hard. Below that, frozen mud grips the wheel like a jealous hand. The driver mutters to the wagon as if it might cooperate. It does not. Wagons, like camels, have opinions. A rumour heard in roadside inns claimed that if a wagon froze in place before sunrise, the road was demanding a small offering of patience from the travellers. This is the kind of saying that sounds poetic only when someone else is doing the digging. You scrape harder. The servant joins you. His breath comes in little clouds. He works silently, with a face tightened against the colder. Every so often he pauses to flex his fingers, then returns to the task. The merchant eventually appears at the wagon opening, wrapped in layers, and surveys the scene with visible concern. Not concern for you, for the cargo. Let us remain honest. He climbs down at last and checks the bindings over the silk bundles. Snow has seeped through one outer covering, but not the inner wrapping. He relaxes slightly. A tiny miracle, apparently beyond him. The caravan master moves from wagon to burro, judging the work. He speaks briefly to each group, pointing here, nodding there, ordering animals brought forward slowly. His calm seems more valuable than warmth. The entire camp is waking into labour. Someone clears a path between wagons. Someone relights a small fire with protected coals saved from the night. Someone carries stiff rope under a cloak to soften it with body heat. Someone curses at a frozen buckle in a tone that suggests a long personal history with buckles. The surviving sources do not always agree on how large or heavily wheeled caravan vehicles were along different Silk Road routes, since many regions relied more on pack animals than wagons, especially in deserts and the mountains. But wherever wheels were used, winter mud, ice, and snow could turn transport into a slow argument with the ground. You are now participating in that argument. The ground is persuasive. At last, the packed snow around the wheel loosens. The driver wedges a board beneath the rim. Another man pushes from the rear. The servant and you clear away more ice. The driver calls to the animals, who lean forward in their harness with slow, reluctant strength. For one long breath, nothing happens. Then the wheel cracks free. The sound is small but satisfying. A hard pop, a creak, a shift. The wagon moves a finger's width forward. Everyone stops. Then the driver laughs, not loudly, just enough. The servant grins, and you realize your own face is smiling too. It is absurd, really. A wagon wheel has moved slightly. No city has fallen. No battle has been won. No grand chronicle will record this moment, but survival is often made of tiny victories. A wheel freed, a rope thawed, a camel persuaded, a fire lit, a bowl warmed, a person waking after a cold night. The caravan master gives a short nod and moves on. Praise, apparently, has been distributed. You accept it. Snow continues drifting down, soft and relentless. The sky grows lighter by degrees. More wagons emerge from the blue gloom. More people bend to work. The camels stand, shake snow from their coats, and look offended by the entire morning. You understand them completely. Your hands ache. Your boots are wet at the edges. Your shoulders feel heavy. Yet the camp is no longer still. The caravan is waking, not quickly, not gracefully, but waking. And as the frozen wagon finally loosens from the snow, you feel the road return beneath the camp, hidden but waiting, ready to test everyone again when the first wheel begins to turn. The first wagon wheel is free. Unfortunately, that is only the beginning. The snowstorm may have weakened during the night, but it has left behind an army of smaller problems. Every strap, buckle, rope, harness, and metal fitting seems determined to remind the caravan that winter is never satisfied with a single inconvenience. The camp is fully awake now. No one needs encouragement. The cold provides all necessary motivation. You stand beside the wagon, rubbing warmth into your hands while pale daylight slowly spreads across the landscape. The world remains almost colourless. White snow, grey sky, dark animals, smoke drifting from a newly rebuilt fire. It feels as though someone has painted the Silk Road using only a few brushes. Nearby, a camel handler kneels beside one of the animals. The camel stands patiently, which immediately suggests something serious is happening. Normally, the creature prefers to express an opinion about everything. Today it merely watches. The handler works frost from a leather strap using gloved fingers. Ice has formed around several buckles during the night. Each piece must be loosened carefully. Leather that freezes too hard can crack. A broken strap in difficult country is far more than an annoyance. It can stop an entire day's travel. You walk Closer. The camel exhales a cloud of steam directly toward you. The gesture feels intentional. You decide not to take it personally. The handler nods toward another strap. You help hold it steady while he works. The leather feels stiff as wood, slowly, patiently. He flexes it back and forth. A little movement, then more. Eventually it bends again, not smoothly, but enough. Many caravan operators depended upon constant maintenance of equipment that modern travellers rarely think about. Harnesses, saddles, ropes, wheels, and pack frames endured tremendous stress during long journeys. Neglecting them invited expensive consequences. The road rewarded preparation. The road punished shortcuts. That lesson seems to appear everywhere. A horse nearby stamps repeatedly. An older driver approaches carrying a small cloth bundle. He unwraps it and reveals a lump of animal fat mixed with oil. Working carefully, he rubs the mixture into a series of straps and fittings. The smell is not pleasant, not terrible, just unmistakably practical. Nothing about it suggests luxury. Everything about it suggests survival. The horse appears unimpressed. The driver appears equally unimpressed with the horse. Their relationship seems well established. Across the camp, several men are working on wagon wheels. Snow is cleared away. Ice is chipped from rims. Axles are inspected. Every creak receives attention. One wagon owner actually kneels beside his wheel and speaks to it. Not angrily, not jokingly, simply speaking. You cannot hear the words. Perhaps he is encouraging it. Perhaps apologizing for yesterday. Perhaps negotiating. Road travel creates unusual friendships. A story traded around a campfires described a merchant who named all 4 wheels of his favourite wagon and refused to travel without speaking to them each morning. The tale may have grown with retelling, but after watching people spend hours rescuing frozen equipment, the idea no longer feels impossible. The servant from your wagon notices the man too. He raises an eyebrow. You raise one back. Neither of you comment. Some mysteries deserve privacy. The rebuilt fire crackles steadily now. Steam rises from a pot where snow melts into water. Several travellers warm their hands before returning to work. Nobody lingers long. The cold drives everyone back into motion. You walk toward the animal lines. The camels are in various stages of preparation. Some stand quietly, some chew. Some appear offended by existence itself. One younger camel keeps trying to turn around while its handler adjusts a harness. The handler gently pushes it forward. The camel immediately attempts the same maneuver again. The discussion continues. Neither side appears likely to win. Contemporary chroniclers observed that caravan animals required enormous attention, especially during difficult seasons. Food, water, shelter, injuries, hoof care, and load balancing demanded constant supervision. A successful caravan relied as much on animal management as on navigation. Watching the handlers work, you understand why. Every animal matters. Every strap matters. Every knot matters. A single overlooked problem can multiply quickly once the caravan returns to the road. The sky brightens slightly. The storm clouds are thinner now. Not gone, just less absolute. For the first time since yesterday, you can see farther than the nearest wagon. Snow-covered ridges emerge from the haze. A distant line of dark hills appears along the horizon. The landscape feels larger again. That realization lifts something inside you. Storms shrink the world. Visibility expands it. The caravan master stands atop a small rise, studying the terrain. You wonder what he sees. Tracks perhaps, wind patterns, possible routes, signs of deeper drifts. The surviving sources do not always agree on how accurately travellers could estimate distances and travel times during severe winter weather. Conditions changed rapidly. Snow could erase tracks, alter landmarks, and slow movement dramatically. Experience helped, but uncertainty remained part of the journey. You suspect the caravan master has made peace with uncertainty long ago. Meanwhile, everyone else makes peace with frozen buckles. The servant and you are assigned another task. A pile of ropes, an alarming number of ropes, each one partially frozen. You sit beside the wagon and begin working through them. Flex, twist, shake loose snow, flex again. The process is repetitive, oddly satisfying. One rope softens, then another. Soon a small pile of usable rope sits beside you. You feel unexpectedly proud. Civilization, it turns out, is held together by people doing boring tasks correctly. The servant seems to reach the same conclusion. Neither of you says it aloud. The thought simply hangs there. Around midday, or what you assume is midday because the sky remains determinedly grey, the first animals are fully harnessed. The sight changes the mood instantly. Preparation becomes possibility. Possibility becomes anticipation. The caravan is beginning to resemble a travelling expedition again rather than a collection of snow-covered objects. A surprisingly charming superstition held among some drivers suggested that the first properly harnessed animal of the morning set the mood for the entire day's journey. If the animal behaved calmly, people smiled. If it kicked, bit, or escaped, everyone became suspicious of their luck. Today's winner is an elderly camel. It stands quietly, allows adjustments, offers only minimal complaints. The handlers seem pleased. You suspect they would have been pleased regardless. Success feels good after a frozen morning. The merchant from your wagon emerges once more to inspect his cargo. Every bundle remains secure, every chest remains closed, every crate remains intact. His expression softens, a rare event. The servant notices it too. You exchange another silent glance. Progress clearly affects everyone. The fire burns lower, tools are packed away, snow is brushed from coats, animals gather into lines, drivers call to one another. The camp that seemed trapped only hours ago has transformed itself through patience and labour. No dramatic rescue arrived, no miracle appeared, just work, careful, repetitive, necessary work. You look across the caravan, wheels freed, harness repaired, ropes thawed, animals ready, people tired but moving. The road still waits beyond the snow, cold still lingers in every shadow. Yet momentum has returned, and as the final adjustments are made and the caravan prepares once more to leave its frozen camp behind, you feel the familiar rhythm beginning to gather again. The road is calling, the wheels are almost ready to answer. The caravan does not leave immediately. That is the first lesson of the morning. You have freed wheels, thawed ropes, checked harnesses, brushed snow from cargo, and convinced at least one camel that cooperation is preferable to protest. Yet the line remains gathered on the snowy plain, making final preparations before returning to the road. The delay frustrates no one. Experience has taught these travellers something important. Rushing often creates the very problems people are trying to avoid, so the caravan waits. Animals breathe steam into the cold air. Drivers exchange information. Merchants inspect loads one final time. Guards study the horizon. The sky remains pale and overcast, but the worst of the storm has passed. Visibility stretches farther now. You can see low ridges beyond the camp and faint lines where snow has collected in deeper drifts. The world looks larger than it did yesterday. You find yourself standing near the fire's remains, warming your hands over a bed of glowing coals. Beside you sits an older traveller, wrapped in several layers of wool and fur. You recognise him from previous evenings. He is neither the merchant with the apricots nor one of the drivers. He simply seems to belong to the road. Some people carry that quality. Age has lined his face deeply. His beard is streaked with white. One eye narrows slightly when he looks into the distance, as though measuring things invisible to everyone else. He notices you watching the caravan. Then he smiles. "First winter crossing?" he asks. You nod. His smile widens, not unkindly, just knowingly, the sort of smile a mountain gives a pebble. For a few moments, he says nothing. Then he shifts closer to the warmth of the coals and begins speaking, not loudly, not dramatically. The story simply emerges, like smoke, like memory. He tells you about another winter many years ago, a colder one. According to him, travellers always claim previous winters were colder. It appears to be an international tradition stretching across centuries. Still, this particular story has details. The caravan had crossed a high pass late in the season. Snow arrived earlier than expected. The animals struggled. The road vanished. Visibility dropped until riders could barely see the tails of the animals ahead. The older traveller describes the storm carefully, not as an adventure, as a problem. That distinction feels important. Veteran merchants occasionally joked that young travellers dreamed about heroic journeys, while experienced travellers dreamed about dry socks, healthy animals, and roads that remained visible. Listening to him now, and you suspect there is truth hidden inside the joke. The old man continues, one morning after several days of snow, the caravan discovered that nearly every track had disappeared. No landmarks remained visible. The mountains themselves seemed to have dissolved into cloud and white sky. The travellers argued. Some wanted to continue, others wanted to wait, others suggested turning back. He pauses here and stares into the coals. The memory clearly remains vivid. The issue remains open because the evidence is limited. But many difficult journeys from the medieval world survive only through fragments of oral tradition, partial records, and later retellings. Sometimes historians can verify details, sometimes they cannot. Stories travel almost as far as merchants do. The old traveller shrugs. Whether every part of his tale is perfectly accurate no longer seems important. You are listening to experience, not a legal deposition. According to his account, the caravan master at the time ordered everyone to remain where they were. No movement, no wandering, no guessing. They waited for 2 days, 2 days inside snow and cloud, 2 days listening to what? 2 days eating carefully measured supplies. You glance toward the surrounding plain. 2 days sounds very long. The old man agrees. He laughs quietly, then tells you that those 2 days probably saved the caravan. When the sky finally cleared, they discovered that one of the proposed routes would have led directly toward a concealed ravine. The road they nearly followed did not exist anymore. Winter had rewritten the landscape. You think about the caravan master from your own journey, his careful decisions, his signals, his patience. Perhaps leadership often looks boring right until the moment people realize why it mattered. The old traveller pokes gently at the coals. A tiny spark rises, disappears, then he shares another story. This one is stranger, far stranger, a story told among camel handlers during his youth. According to the tale, a white camel appeared during snowstorms and guided lost caravans back towards safety. The animal never accepted food, never approached people directly. It simply appeared ahead of travellers, walking through drifting snow until the danger passed. Then it vanished. The old traveller grins. Clearly he enjoys this one. You ask if he believes it. He shrugs again. An old travel proverb warned that roads become longer when a person argues too aggressively with a good story. That seems wise. Perhaps he believes it, perhaps not. Either way, the story survives. And that tells you something about the people who travelled these routes. They needed hope as much as they needed bum maps. Nearby, the servant from your wagon has wandered close enough to listen. His eyes widen during the white camel tale. He seems entirely prepared to accept it as historical fact. You decide not to interfere. The road can keep a few mysteries. The old traveller notices the servant's reaction and appears delighted, encouraged. He continues. Now come stories of distant caravanserais, mountain roads, lost pack animals, unexpected friendships, markets where traders from half a dozen regions met beneath the same roof. His memories stretch across decades. With every tale, the Silk Road grows larger, not geographically, humanly. Contemporary merchants frequently spent years moving between trading centres. developing relationships that lasted across enormous distances. Trust could become as valuable as silver. Reputation could become more important than immediate profit. The old traveller embodies that world. You realise he knows people in cities you have never seen, roads you have never travelled, languages you have never heard, yet here he sits beside a half-buried fire, warming his hands like everyone else. The caravan master eventually walks past. He exchanges a brief nod with the storyteller. No words, just recognition. One road veteran acknowledging another. The moment feels oddly meaningful. Soon, movement begins spreading through the camp again. Drivers call to animals, loads are checked, harnesses tighten, the waiting period is ending, the road is returning. The old traveller notices it too. He rises slowly, every joint seems to negotiate the decision. At last he stands. Then brushes snow from his cloak. Before leaving, he offers one final observation, not quite advice, not quite wisdom, simply something he has learned. The road is never what you expect, he says. Then he smiles, and that's why people keep following it. With that, he turns and walks toward the gathering caravan. You watch him go, past wagons, past camels, past drivers preparing for another day. His stories remain behind like footprints in fresh snow, some true, some unbeaten, some perhaps impossible, all memorable. The coals glow faintly before you. The servant continues thinking about the white camel. The caravan prepares to move, and as the old traveller's tales settle into your mind, the snowy world feels slightly larger, filled not only with roads and trade goods, but with the countless stories carried along beside them. The caravan begins moving again, but now the road feels less like a path and more like a rumour. The snow has covered nearly every trace of yesterday's track. Wheels that once cut dark lines through mud now press into white silence. Hoofprints vanish almost as soon as they appear. The sky remains low and pale, and although the storm has softened, the air still carries fine snow that drifts across the ground in restless sheets. You ride inside the wagon at first, wrapped in your blanket, watching the world through a loose fold in the canvas. Everything seems uncertain. A ridge ahead might be a true landmark, or only a snowdrift. A dark line near the horizon might be a stand of leafless shrubs, or rocks, or animals, or imagination behaving badly after a long cold night. The caravan master rides near the front with two local guides beside him. Their horses move slowly, every so often. The group stops, studies the land, confers in low voices, then continues at a cautious angle. The caravan follows, trusting their judgment because Driest, at this point, is less a virtue and more a transportation system. You feel the wagon tilt as it crosses uneven ground. The driver calls softly to the animals. The wheels bite into packed snow, then slip, then catch again. Inside, the cargo shifts with a familiar muffled groan. A crate knocks gently against another. The servant beside you grips a rope hanging from the wagon frame. His eyes narrow toward the outside world. No one speaks much. You're all listening for the road. That sounds strange until you experience it. Listening for the crunch that changes when snow hides ice. Listening for hollow places where frozen water might lie beneath. Listening for the way animals hesitate before uncertain ground. Listening for the caravan master's next command. Caravan accounts from Central Asia and neighbouring regions mention road markers. Wells, walls, shrines, towers, and distinctive rock formations used to judge distance and direction. In clear weather, these signs helped travellers measure progress. In winter, they could disappear completely beneath snow or haze, leaving guides to rely on memory, terrain, and instinct. The old traveller's words from earlier return to you. The road is never what you expect. Today, the road seems determined to prove him correct. After a while, the caravan stops again. This halt lasts longer. The lead riders spread out slightly, careful not to vanish from sight. One dismounts and walks toward a cluster of stones barely visible above the snow. Another studies a low slope to the right. The caravan master remains mounted, turning slowly in the saddle, comparing what he sees with what he remembers. The servant whispers, "Are we lost?" The merchant answers before you can. "Not lost." A pause. Delayed. The distinction sounds expensive. You keep that thought to yourself. A rider returns from the stones and calls back. The word passes through the caravan. Marker. The mood shifts almost at once, not celebration, not relief exactly, but attention sharpens. A marker means memory has found something solid. You climb down when the wagon pauses near the stones. Snow reaches nearly to your calves where it has drifted. The cluster is not impressive at first glance. Several rough stones stacked unevenly beside the road, dark caps showing above white, yet someone, sometime, placed them here for a reason. Perhaps to mark a turn, perhaps to show a buried track, perhaps to warn of a slope, perhaps simply to say, yes, others have passed this way. That feels more powerful than it should. You brush snow from one stone with your gloved hand. The surface is cold, rough, and dark. The guide watches you and gives a faint smile. Then he touches the top stone briefly with 2 fingers before turning away. Some drivers refuse to pass certain markers without touching them for luck. Others left tiny offerings, bits of thread, crumbs, or whispered thanks. Not every region practiced the same habits, and not every traveller believed in them, but roads encourage gestures that turn the uncertainty into something bearable. You touch the stone again, not because you believe it will change the weather, because it feels polite. The caravan master orders the line to angle toward the left, following the markers across the snow. The wagons begin moving once more, slow and careful. The stones appear at intervals, sometimes visible, sometimes hidden, sometimes guessed at by the guides before being uncovered with staffs. The road returns in fragments, a marker, a shallow depression, a line of wind-packed snow where wheels once passed, a distant dark ridge, memory stitched to landscape. You climb back into the wagon as movement resumes. The servant looks thoughtful. He asks whether the markers lead to shelter. "Eventually," says the merchant. Then, after a moment, "If they are the right markers," that answer does not improve morale as much as he may have intended. The wagon continues. The sky brightens slightly, though no sun appears. Snow reflects the light so evenly that the world seems to glow from below. Your eyes ache from whiteness. You understand now why travellers might wrap cloth across their faces, not only against cold but against glare. Ahead, the caravan begins descending very gently. Yes. The driver leans forward. The animals slow. The wagon creaks down the slope, its wheels partially sliding, partially rolling. You hold your breath until the ground levels. No accident, no overturned cargo, no dramatic opportunity for future storytellers. Excellent. Written descriptions from different centuries disagree about how reliable winter routes really were across the wide range of landscapes later grouped under the idea of the Silk Road. Some roads were maintained and watched by authorities when empires were strong. Others depended on local knowledge, temporary alliances, and seasonal luck. The phrase "the road" can make the whole thing sound much more orderly than it often was. Today, order feels fragile, but not absent. The caravan master finds it again and again, in stones, in slopes, in the behaviour of animals, in the memories of guides. By midday, the land begins to change. The open whiteness narrows into a shallow valley. Low banks rise on either side, their edges softened by snow. Sparse shrubs poke through the drifts like black stitches. The wind is weaker here, sound carries differently. You hear bells more clearly. Voices too. The caravan seems to breathe easier. A guide points ahead. People lean from wagons. Drivers lift their heads. Even the camels appear slightly less offended, though that may be wishful interpretation. Far ahead, there is a line of darker ground beneath the snow, a road perhaps, a better road, one used more often, packed harder by travellers moving toward shelter. The caravan master sends 2 riders forward. They move carefully, testing the surface. Minutes pass, then one raises an arm, the signal returns, good ground, the wagons turn toward it. The change beneath the wheels is immediate. The surface firms, the wagon rolls with less lurching, fewer deep groans. The animals find footing more easily. A quiet wave of relief passes through the caravan. Not shelter yet, but the road to shelter, and sometimes the promise of a roof is almost as warming as the roof itself. You look back through the wagon opening. Behind you, the caravan's fresh tracks stretch across the snow, dark lines through white, already softening under drifting powder. Soon, they too will fade. Another storm, another wall, the wind, and it will be as if no one passed. Yet, for now, the caravan moves forward, guided by stones, memory, patience, and the stubborn hope of reaching walls before night. The Caravanserai road has been found, and the whole line begins to follow it through the pale afternoon, toward whatever shelter waits beyond the next fold of snow. The first person to see it is not the caravan master. It is not one of the guides. It is not even a guard riding ahead. It is a camel. At least that is what the servant insists later. The animal lifts its head, stops chewing, stares forward, then begins walking with a degree of enthusiasm that you have not previously believed possible. The servant notices immediately. Look. You follow his gaze through the opening in the wagon. At first you see nothing, only snow, only the pale road winding through the shallow valley, only drifting clouds of powder carried by the wind. Then the shape appears, so distant that it might be imagination, a darker line against the white, low, broad, straight, not a ridge, not a drift. Something built. The wagon continues forward, the shape grows slowly. A wall. You sit up straighter. Others have seen it now as well. Riders turn their heads. Drivers point. Conversations begin passing along the caravan like sparks catching dry grass. The caravanserai, not close, not yet, but real. The effect on morale is immediate. Fatigue remains. Cold remains. Wet boots remain very much present. Yet hope suddenly acquires architecture. You climb down from the wagon and walk beside it for a while. The movement helps warm your legs. Ahead, the wall gradually separates itself from the landscape. Snow clings to its base. Dark stone rises above. The structure sits slightly elevated on a low rise, visible from a considerable distance. That placement is no accident. Many caravanserais were intentionally positioned along major routes to provide shelter, security, water, storage space, and a predictable stopping point for travellers. Some were modest, others grew into substantial complexes capable of accommodating merchants, animals, goods, and visitors from many regions. From where you stand, this one looks like a fortress built by someone who deeply dislikes sleeping outdoors. You already approve. The road bends gently toward it. The wall becomes clearer. Then the corner towers emerge. Not enormous towers. Practical towers, strong towers, the sort that suggest protection rather than grandeur. Snow gathers along their ledges. Dark openings mark windows and watch positions. You feel the atmosphere of the caravan changing around you. People walk faster, animals seem more willing, even the drivers sound lighter. Not cheerful exactly, just relieved. A road can be endured more easily when its ending is visible. The servant keeps glancing toward the caravanserai, as if worried it might disappear again. After the previous day, the concern feels reasonable. The old traveller from the morning appears beside you. He follows your gaze, then nods once. "Good walls," he says. "That seems to be the highest compliment available in this environment." You agree immediately. The road narrows as it approaches the structure. Tracks become more visible. You notice older wagon marks beneath the fresh snow, hoof prints, compressed sections of earth. Evidence that many others have passed this way before. A few travellers even stop briefly to examine them. Roads are conversations between strangers who never meet. Each set of tracks answers the ones before. A superstition found in several regions suggested that arriving travellers should greet a caravanserai before passing through its gate. Some offered thanks, others touched the wall, others simply spoke a few words under their breath. Shelter, after all, could mean the difference between comfort and misery. Given recent events, you are beginning to understand why gratitude develops so naturally. The caravan continues climbing toward the entrance. Now you can make out details. Stone blocks fitted together with remarkable care. Heavy wooden gates reinforced with metal bands. A broad archway tall enough for loaded animals and wagons. Snow piled against the outer wall. Smoke drifting upward from somewhere inside. The smoke catches your attention immediately. Smoke means fire means warmth. Warmth means civilization. The logic is flawless. You hear laughter ahead. Actual laughter. The sound feels almost exotic after so much cold concentration. One of the drivers calls out something toward the gate. A reply comes back. The words are lost in distance and wind, but the tone carries easily enough. Welcome? The old traveller smiles. The servant grins. Even the merchant appears noticeably less worried about his cargo, though only slightly. We should not expect miracles. As the caravan approaches, figures appear atop the wall. Watchmen, perhaps. Workers, stable hands, residents, travellers already sheltering inside. They move along the parapet observing the arriving line. No alarm, no concern, only interest. Another caravan has arrived. Another collection of stories. Another collection of goods. Another collection of muddy boots seeking sympathy. The surviving records from various caravan routes describe caravanserais as more than simple inns. They often functioned as commercial centres, information exchanges, storage locations, social meeting places, and temporary communities. News travelled through them. Contracts were arranged, rumours spread, friendships formed. Standing before one now, you begin to understand why. The building feels alive even before you enter. The gates stand open. A worker with a shovel clears fresh snow from the entrance path. Two men guide animals through the arch. Someone carries firewood across the courtyard beyond. You can only glimpse fragments, but every glimpse promises shelter. The caravan master rides ahead to exchange greetings. Formalities matter. Even warm walls have procedures. The rest of the caravan slows. Wagons gather into a line. Animals shuffle, snow drift around their legs. You wait, no one complains. After days of road and storm, a few extra minutes seem insignificant. The old traveller folds his arms. The servant bounces slightly on his feet. Unable to hide his anticipation, the merchant checks one final strap, naturally. Then at last the signal comes. Forward. The first wagon enters. The great gate swallows it. Then another. Then another. You move closer. The stone wall rises beside you now. Its surface bears scratches, weathering, and marks left by countless seasons. You place a hand against it briefly. Cold, solid, reliable. A wall that has stood through many winters. Several interpretations have been offered for exactly how comfortable medieval caravanserais could be. Conditions varied enormously depending on wealth, location, management, politics, and maintenance. Some likely offered impressive accommodations, others provided little more than security and a roof. At this moment, you would happily accept either. The archway looms ahead, dark wood, dark stone, a shadowed passage leading inward. You hear voices echoing within, animals, footsteps, the clatter of equipment, the distant crackle of fires. The smells arrive next: smoke, cooked food, hay, warm animals, wet wool drying near heat. The scent alone feels almost luxurious. You step beneath the arch. Snow remains behind you. The storm remains behind you. The road remains behind you. Not forever. Only for a night. But tonight is enough. The sounds of the courtyard grow louder. The walls surround you, the wind weakens, and as you pass through the gate into the sheltering heart of the caravanserai, it feels less like entering a building and more like arriving at an island in the middle of a frozen sea. The courtyard receives you with noise. After so many hours of wind and snow, the sound feels almost overwhelming. Hooves strike packed earth. Men call to one another across the open space. Camels groan beneath the arch, deeply committed to announcing their arrival. Wheels roll over stone and frozen mud. Somewhere nearby, a door opens, and warm air carrying the smell of soup drifts into the cold. You stop just inside the... For a moment, you simply stand. They stand there. Walls rise on every side, dark and solid against the pale winter sky. The storm is still visible above, a soft grey movement beyond the open courtyard, but it no longer owns you completely. The wind has weakened inside the enclosure. Snow falls more gently here. Drifting downward instead of striking sideways, shelter changes everything. Not comfort yet, not rest yet, but possibility. The caravan master speaks with the keeper near the entrance. Their conversation is formal, efficient, and probably filled with details about animals, goods, books, and payment. You do not need to understand every word, or the meaning is clear enough. We have arrived, make room, we can pay. Please do not make this complicated. The keeper is a broad-shouldered man in a thick coat, his beard damp from snow. He gestures towards the one side of the courtyard where animals are being led beneath covered stalls. Another worker points the wagons towards storage bays along the wall. The caravan begins to unfold itself. Loads are loosened, harnesses slacken, ropes are untied, animals are guided towards shelter. People who spent all day moving now begin the equally exhausting work of stopping properly. You follow the servant toward the wagon. Together you help pass down smaller bundles, while heavier cargo remains under the merchant's careful supervision. The silk bales are lifted out with tenderness usually reserved for sleeping babies or dangerous pottery. Tea crates are moved under cover. Paper cases are checked quickly for damp. The merchant's face slowly relaxes as each item reaches dry ground. You suspect this is his version of poetry. Excavations at caravanserai sites and surviving descriptions show that many were designed around practical needs of a central courtyard, rooms or galleries around the edges, space for animals, storage for goods, and access to water. The architecture was not merely decorative, it organised survival, commerce, and rest inside protective walls. You can feel that design working around you. Every corner has a purpose, animals to one side, goods to another, travellers toward rooms or raised platforms, fire and food near the inner chambers, water drawn from a well or cistern. Order returns not through speeches, but through space. You carry one bundle beneath an arcade where stone arches frame the courtyard. The air under the roof feels warmer, though perhaps only because the snow no longer touches your face. Your boots leave wet marks on the floor. Around you, other travellers shake snow from cloaks, stamp their feet, and remove gloves with the slow reverence of people rediscovering fingers. Inside one chamber, a fire burns low and steady. Its warmth reaches the doorway. You pause there longer than necessary. No one blames you. Steam rises from clothing hung near the wall. Wet wool gives off its strong, animal smell. Leather straps lie across a bench to soften. A copper pot hangs over the fire, and something inside it bubbles with a patient, deeply persuasive sound. Soup, or stew, or anything hot enough to forgive many sins. The servant appears beside you and inhales. His expression becomes almost spiritual. A kitchen worker ladles liquid into bowls for earlier arrivals. You catch the smell of onions, grain, fat, perhaps lentils, perhaps mutton. After last night's thin broth, this aroma feels scandalously rich, not royal, of course. Let us not become spoiled after one doorway. but rich enough to make everyone suddenly polite. Among winter travellers, there circulated a tale that the first steam rising from a caravanserai kitchen could revive a man faster than a physician. This may not satisfy medical experts, but watching the servants stare at the pot, you understand the emotional science perfectly. The courtyard continues filling. Your caravan is not the only group here. A smaller party has arrived earlier, and now watches from beneath the arches. Their animals stand under cover, already fed. Their travellers look drier, warmer, and therefore slightly superior. You try not to resent them. A man in a fur hat leads 2 pack horses past you. Their coats shine dark with melted snow. A woman carrying a basket steps around a pile of saddles. Children peek from a doorway, curious about the new arrivals. Somewhere above, on a second level perhaps, a door shuts with a wooden thump. The building feels like a small town compressed into one enclosure. Languages overlap, accents mingle. A guard laughs. A camel protests. A cook snaps at someone blocking the kitchen entrance. Life resumes in layers. You help spread a covering beneath the arcade so cargo can rest above the damp floor. The merchant inspects each package again, then again, because apparently inspection becomes more powerful through repetition. At last he nods. The goods are safe. This tiny nod changes the whole mood inside your wagon group. The driver loosens his shoulders. The servant sinks onto a rolled mat. You sit beside him, feeling the ache in your legs finally arrive with full honesty. Your body has been keeping a list. Cold feet, sore hands, stiff back, tired eyes, bruised knee from the crate. And now that shelter has been reached, the list is being read aloud. You lean against the wall. Stone presses cool and solid against your shoulder. It is wonderful. There is ongoing discussion among specialists about how socially mixed caravanserais were in everyday practice. Some may have separated people by rank, religion, gender, profession, or wealth more strictly than others. Yet the basic need for shelter meant that very different travellers could still share the same walls, courtyard, smells, noises, and winter relief. You glance around and see that mixture everywhere. A merchant counting coins, a handler rubbing down a camel, a guard removing snow from his boots, a cook shouting for more water, a traveller praying quietly near a column, a child staring at the steam rising from your cloak. For one night. All of you belong to the same building. A bowl finally reaches your hands, hot, heavy, beautiful. You lift it carefully, feeling warmth seep into your palms. The steam touches your face. You take a slow sip. Thicker than last night, saltier, almost luxurious. You try not to make a sound. You fail slightly. The servant laughs under his breath, then takes his own bowl and makes the same sound. No judgment is possible. The firelight glows across the chamber. Lanterns hang from iron hooks. Shadows move along the walls as people pass. Outside in the courtyard, snow continues falling into the open space, but now it looks peaceful rather than threatening. It gathers on the central ground while footsteps cut paths through it. The caravan has transformed from a line of travellers into a resting community. Animals steam under shelter. Goods dry beneath arches. People eat with lowered shoulders. The storm is still present, but it has been pushed back by walls, fire, soup, and human organisation. You remember last night's wagon, the guard's lantern, the frozen wheel, the road markers, the first glimpse of stone. Each moment now seems to lead naturally here, into this warm, noisy, smoky courtyard where survival becomes ordinary again. You sit with your bowl between both hands, listening to the voices around you soften into evening, and feel warmth return in careful layers, from fingers to wrists, from throat to chest, from memory to sleep. The night settles gently over the caravanserai. Not the wild night of the open road, not the night of drifting snow, frozen wheels, and distant watch fires. A different night, a contained night, a human night. The courtyard gradually empties as travellers retreat beneath roofs and arches. Animals settle into their stalls, lanterns glow behind wooden doors, smoke rises steadily from chimneys and roof vents, carrying the smell of cooking fires into the cold air above the walls. You remain near the main chamber for a while, reluctant to leave the warmth. The fire has grown larger since your arrival. Fresh fuel crackles softly beneath iron pots. Orange light flickers across stone walls darkened by generations of smoke. The room feels worn, practical, and deeply welcoming. No one would mistake it for a palace, yet after the storm it feels magnificent. The servant sits nearby with another bowl balanced carefully between both hands. He has reached the stage of comfort where a person no longer speaks very much. Warmth has become more important than conversation. The merchant occupies a place close enough to the fire to dry his cloak but far enough away to maintain dignity. This balance appears important to him. Around the room, travellers from different caravans share the same space. A man in a heavy fur hat speaks quietly with a trader whose accent comes from somewhere far beyond the mountains. A woman repairs a torn glove beside the wall. Two drivers compare road conditions using hand gestures, sketches in ash, and occasional words. A child has fallen asleep against a bundle while an older relative watches over him. The languages rise and fall around you like distant waves. Most remain impossible to understand, that hardly matters. The emotions travel clearly enough. Relief, fatigue, curiosity, contentment. You realize that every person in the room arrived here by a different path. Some came from cities, some from villages, some from deserts, some from mountain valleys, yet tonight they share one roof. The building itself seems designed for this meeting of worlds. Long before modern borders, passports, or travel schedules, places like this created temporary communities wherever major routes crossed difficult landscapes. Merchants needed them, pilgrims needed them, officials needed them, even wandering storytellers needed them. The walls around you have probably heard thousands of conversations, most forgotten, important, all human. A keeper passes through carrying a lantern. As he moves, he exchanges greetings with several travellers by name. That detail catches your attention. He knows them, or at least recognises them. The road, despite its vast distances, can become surprisingly familiar for those who travelled it repeatedly. The old traveller from the previous day sits near another fire at the far side of the room. Several listeners have gathered around him already. Apparently he has found a fresh audience. You suspect the white camel has returned. The servant notices as well. He immediately drifts in that direction. Naturally, a story repeated often enough becomes part of the road itself. You stay where you are, for now. The warmth feels too good to abandon. A driver lowers himself onto a bench nearby and removes his boots. Steam immediately rises from them. The smell arrives shortly afterward. Nobody comments. Some experiences are universal. A few travellers laugh quietly. The driver shrugs. No defence is possible. Outside, snow taps softly against the shutters. Inside, the fire continues its patient work. The room grows warmer, not hot, just comfortably alive. Several route descriptions written generations apart mention travellers sleeping in shared spaces during difficult seasons. The exact arrangements vary from account to account. Some describe crowded rooms packed with merchants and goods. Others suggest separate chambers for wealthier guests. The reality probably depended on the location, the season, and how many people happen to arrive before sunset. Tonight, the room feels pleasantly crowded. There is enough space, not much extra, just enough. You eventually rise and walk toward the storyteller's corner. The old traveller is halfway through another tale. This one involves a caravan that reached a city only to discover that every available stable had already been filled by another arriving caravan. The story grows more ridiculous with every sentence. Listeners laugh. The old man clearly enjoys their reaction. Whether every detail is true seems entirely beside the point. One listener challenges part of the tales. Another claims to have heard a different version. The storyteller responds immediately by improving the story even further. No one appears troubled by this approach. Road stories behave differently from legal records. The discussion drifts naturally towards travel, road conditions, markets, political rumours, weather. A merchant from another caravan mentions a distant city where prices for certain textiles have risen sharply. Your merchant suddenly becomes much more attentive. Interesting, very interesting. You watch him pretend not to be interested. He is not convincing. Nearby, another traveller describes a mountain route blocked by early snow. Someone disagrees, someone else claims the blockage happened last year instead. The conversation continues. No surviving traveller ever left behind a complete guide explaining exactly how information moved between caravans, yet sitting here, watching the exchange happen naturally, you can see the process for yourself. News travels in fragments. One person hears something, another confirms part of it, a third corrects a detail, a fourth adds a rumour. By the end of the evening, everyone knows something new. Whether all of it is accurate remains another question. The servant eventually returns. The white camel story has apparently expanded again. It now involves a mountain pass, a lost bell, and mysterious tracks. You choose not to investigate further. Some legends are healthiest at a distance. The fire burns lower. Travellers begin preparing for sleep. Blankets appear. Bags are arranged as pillows. Goods are stacked carefully near their owners. Lanterns are dimmed. The atmosphere changes gradually, almost imperceptibly. Voices soften, movement slow. Even laughter becomes quieter. You find a place near the wall beneath a hanging lantern. The stone behind you still holds a little warmth from the room. Your blanket smells faintly of smoke, wool, spices, and road dust, a strangely comforting combination. You settle down, nearby. The servant is already drifting towards sleep. The merchant checks his cargo one final time. Of course he does. Then even he finally rests. Beyond the walls, snow continues falling across the Silk Road. The roads remain cold. The mountains remain distant. The next stage of the journey still waits, but tonight none of that demands attention. Tonight there is only firelight, only murmured voices fading into silence, only the sound of travellers breathing beneath a foreign roof. You close your eyes, the room settles around you. A temporary village assembled from strangers. A brief pause in a long journey. A safe harbour made of stone, timber, warmth, and shared understanding. And as the lantern glow softens into darkness, the sounds of many different lives blend together into one gentle rhythm, carrying you peacefully towards sleep. Morning arrives quietly. No storm shakes the walls. No urgent voices echo through the courtyard. No frozen wheel demands attention. Instead, dawn slips gently into the caravanserai. Pale light spreading across stone floors and timber beams while the last lanterns fade into irrelevance. You wake slowly. For a moment, you forget where you are. A blanket beneath your chin feels warm. The room smells faintly of smoke, wool, and yesterday's cooking. Around you, sleeping travellers remain wrapped in cloaks and bedding, scattered across the chamber like driftwood, left behind by a tide. Then memory returns. The wagon, the snowstorm, the frozen camp, the road markers, the gate, the courtyard, the warmth. You smile without quite meaning to. Your body feels different, still sore, still tired, but restored. The servant nearby is asleep on his side, one arm tucked beneath his head. The merchant is already awake, naturally. He sits cross-legged near his cargo, inspecting a list written on a scrap of paper. Some things survive every season. Snow, roads, merchants counting things. Outside, the first sounds of morning begin spreading through the caravanserai. A bucket scraping stone, a horse shaking its mane, footsteps crossing the courtyard. Someone opening a heavy door. The sounds are ordinary, and because they are ordinary, they feel wonderful. You rise and step outside. Cold air greets you, but it lacks yesterday's cruelty. The storm has passed. The sky above the walls is pale blue, streaked with soft clouds. Fresh snow covers the courtyard edges, untouched except for a few early footprints. Thin smoke rises from chimneys and drifts lazily into the morning light. The transformation is remarkable. The same world, the same winter, yet everything feels gentler. You walk slowly toward the centre of the courtyard. The snow crunches beneath your boots. A stable hand carries feed toward the animals. 2 travellers draw water from the well. A cook emerges from the kitchen doorway carrying a basket of bread. Immediately, several people become interested in breakfast. Human nature remains reliable. The caravan itself is beginning to wake. Camels stand beneath shelter, chewing thoughtfully. Their coats have dried, their eyes appear calmer. Even their complaints sound less dramatic today. Almost one animal still manages to express disappointment with the universe before sunrise. Consistency deserves respect. Merchants commonly planned rest days or shorter travel stages around secure stopping points whenever conditions allowed. Animals recovered strength. Equipment could be inspected. Goods could be reorganized. Travellers could eat properly and sleep beneath a roof. These pauses often mattered as much as the miles themselves. Looking around the courtyard, you can see that recovery happening everywhere. A handler brushes snow from a saddle. A driver repairs a strap. A trader repacks several crates. A traveller writes a letter. Life resumes through small tasks. The old traveller appears near the well carrying a wooden cup. He nods towards you. You return the greeting. No grand farewell speech follows. Road friendships often seem comfortable with silence. The servant finally emerges from the sleeping chamber and immediately begins searching for breakfast. His priorities remain admirably consistent. Nearby, several travellers from another caravan are preparing to depart. Their animals are loaded. Their wagons stand ready near the door. Watching them reminds you that the caravanserai is not an ending, only a pause. Roads flow through places like this the way rivers flow through valleys. People arrive, people leave, the building remains. One oddly specific belief held that departing travellers should avoid looking back through the gate after leaving caravanserai. Depending on who told the story, looking back could bring delays, bad luck, unexpected weather, or simply another storyteller eager to improve the tale. No one seems particularly concerned by the superstition this morning. Several people are already looking in every direction. Breakfast arrives in the form of warm bread, hot drink, and a simple stew. You accept all of it gratefully. The warmth spreads through your hands and chest. Steam rises from the bowl around you. Conversations begin again. Not yesterday's conversations, new ones, fresh road reports, market rumours, weather predictions, travel plans. A caravanserai never remains still for long. The road keeps feeding it. Written descriptions of winter travel often focus on dramatic moments such as storms, difficult crossings, or dangerous encounters. Yet mornings like this may have been equally important. Recovery, preparation, and ordinary routine rarely become legends, but they are often what make survival possible. You think about that while watching sunlight touch the upper wall. The storm will be remembered. The frozen wheels, the buried road, the search for markers, the first glimpse of stone through the snow. Yet those moments mattered because they led here, to warmth, to rest, to continuation. A few children run across part of the courtyard chasing one another through the snow. Their laughter bounces off the walls. A camel watches them with visible suspicion. The servant laughs. The old traveller laughs. Even the merchant smiles briefly before remembering he is a merchant and returning to his serious expression. The mood feels lighter than any point during the journey. Perhaps because the road has become visible again. Perhaps because everyone now knows they can survive it. The surviving evidence leaves many details of ordinary medieval travel uncertain. We rarely know exactly what a specific traveller felt after reaching safety, after surviving bad weather. After sharing a meal with strangers who would soon continue toward different horizons, but standing here, you suspect the feeling may have been something like this: relief, gratitude, a quiet appreciation for walls, fire, food, and company. Nothing dramatic, nothing heroic, just deeply human. The morning continues. Snow glitters softly in sunlight. Smoke rises. Animals wait. The gate stands open. Beyond it, the Silk Road stretches onward through mountains, valleys, deserts, towns, and countless stories yet to be lived. Soon your caravan will continue. The merchant will watch his cargo. The servant will complain about the cold. The old traveller will gather new stories. The caravan master will study new roads. The camels will continue judging everyone. And you will travel onward, but not yet, not this moment. For now, you remain inside the caravanserai, breathing warm air, listening to distant voices, feeling sunlight reflected from fresh snow, remembering the storm that brought you here. And as the morning settles gently over the courtyard, the long journey feels less like a struggle against winter and more like what it has always been: a passage through the world, a collection of roads, a collection of people, a collection of moments carried forward together. The snowstorm is behind you now, the road lies ahead, and somewhere beyond the gate, another story waits. For now, the morning remains calm. The courtyard grows brighter as the sun climbs a little higher behind thin clouds. Snow resting on roof edges begins to soften. Water drips quietly from stone ledges and disappears into the packed earth below. The sounds are small enough that you almost miss them. You do not hurry, no one asked you to. The road will still be there in an hour. The mountains will still be there tomorrow. Even the distant cities waiting along the Silk Road have waited for centuries. They can spare a little more time. You let your gaze wander across the courtyard one final time. The old traveller speaking softly beside the well, the servant happily occupied with food, the merchant arranging his goods with loving precision, the stable hands moving among the animals, the cooks tending their fires, the guards leaning against sunlit walls, all the separate lives that briefly crossed paths beneath one roof. You think back to the wagon, to the snow tapping against canvas, to the lantern swinging in darkness, to frozen ropes, hidden roads, and the endless whiteness beyond the wheels. Those moments felt enormous while you lived them. Now they feel softer, more distant, like snow settling across old tracks. The warmth of the caravanserai seems to smooth every memory, rounding its sharp corners, turning hardship into story, and story into something almost comforting. You breathe in slowly, smoke, fresh bread, cold morning air, a trace of hay, a trace of wool, simple scents, ancient scents, the scents of travellers resting before continuing on. And perhaps that is the quiet lesson carried by places like this. Journeys are rarely remembered mile by mile. They are remembered through moments of shelter, moments of kindness, moments when strangers share firelight, food, stories, and silence. The road connects cities, certainly, but it also connects people. The storm outside never knew your name. The snow never cared where you came from. Yet inside these walls, among fellow travellers, you became part of something larger than weather, part of a moving world, part of an endless exchange of goods, ideas, memories, and human experience. The morning light grows softer. The sounds of the courtyard blend together. Voices, footsteps, animals, wind, all settling into a gentle rhythm. You feel your shoulders relax. Your breathing slows. The road ahead no longer feels urgent. It simply waits, patiently, as roads always do. So you allow yourself one last peaceful moment beneath the winter sky, surrounded by stone walls, drifting smoke, and the quiet promise of another day. And as the sounds of the caravanserai fade into a calm and comforting hum, you let the image rest softly in your mind. A wagon beneath falling snow, a fire beneath a windbreak, a lantern in the dark, a gate opening in the storm, a warm room full of strangers, a road stretching onward through history, and now, at last, a peaceful morning, sweet dreams.